Good afternoon. I assume you can hear me okay. Hi, Seth. Cheers. Welcome, for those of you present, to our office at IntelliTect in beautiful Spokane, Washington. And for those online, welcome as well to our GitHub Global Bootcamp for this afternoon. Thanks for coming. And again, we welcome you here. My name's Phil Spokus. I'm the CTO at IntelliTect, and I've got a few announcements. Then I'll introduce our speaker, and we will get rolling. Okay. So, firstly, some logistics. Restrooms for those here. You know, I think everybody online, you probably know where your restrooms are, but for those here in the office, to my left and around the corner, feel free. This is a boot camp. We're going to try and get a bunch of stuff done. But by the same token, if you need to get up, go for it. We have snacks and drinks over there to my right under the, we have water, some snacks, pops of various kinds. In the kitchen, which is to my left, we have coffee and tea, or hot water and tea bags, if you're so inclined. Kevin will do a break, an official break, about halfway through the session today. So, if you're, you can plan for that if you'd like. But again, if you need to get up, go ahead. We do have a Teams meeting. Obviously, those online, if you have a question, chat us up. We have a team of IntelliTect, the Intelli team here to help proctor and help answer some of the questions as we go. For those here in person, if you signed up to be a proctor, please stand up. And then if you look behind you, yeah, cheers. If somebody has a question, you're falling behind or something's not working for you, feel free to raise a hand and somebody will come over and try to help you. If you're online, same sort of deal. If you have an issue, let us know. We'll see if we can resolve it just in chat. But if not, somebody will pick up your questions and probably start a direct Teams chat with you and see if we can help you along, so we can all get as far as possible with the content. No dev left behind. That's how we roll here. Okay, our speaker, Kevin, is a senior software architect here at Microsoft, at IntelliTect. Hello, we're at IntelliTect. Senior software architect, also a Microsoft MVP, most valuable professional for C#. Kevin is passionate advocate for open source software, yay. Contributor to Essential C#, authored by Mark Michaelis primarily with a bunch of people helping him, including Kevin, co-author, and maintainer of multiple popular open source projects, including Material Design, Mock Automaker, Show Me the XML, and a few others he doesn't want to mention. As well, if you've used System Command Line, which you should if you're doing an app that needs a command line in C#, Kevin has contributed that as well. It was there in the early days as that library was built. Kevin is also active in the community, giving presentations like today's. So with no further ado, I think I introduced the team. So names and faces for the people there in the back who are willing, ready to help you out. Okay, good to go.
I don't know which way is on. I probably should have checked that. Sounds like on. Sweet. Hello. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, Phil jumped the gun and didn't delete this slide, but those are the list of faces for your proctors.
I forgot about questions.
Oh, yeah. So for people who have questions, we do have Lindsay wielding a microphone in the back for those people here. So if you do have a question, you want to ask me or the group or et cetera, shoot a hand up. She will bring a mic around to you. Ideally, we'd like it if questions went through the mic just so that people online can hear them. If not, I'll repeat them. Yeah, walk through, please. Absolutely. Like, we've also got power strips and whatnot hanging out here. faces of the proctors for those people who care. If it's just you need a little bit of help, you kind of just shoot a hand up, swing your head around, one of them running. Test audio, 1, 2. This is why we do audio checks earlier, so that we can swap in the middle. Because of course, whatever you've tested has gone belly up. And on that note, that is something that's important to note. Like myself and most of the proctors here have gone through these exercises. I've done them more than one time, and I have not gotten the same results any 2 runs in a row. So just be aware that this, by definition, is going to be a non-deterministic lab experiments going through these things. That kind of randomness is actually good. It promotes getting better results, but it also means that I can't prep for these things. So we're going to hope for the best. They worked great, but they worked at different degrees of great. But we are also going to go through and cover GitHub Codespaces. For people here, the intent is that you shouldn't need anything on your machine beyond a browser. If anyone has not gone and set up a GitHub Copilot or a GitHub account and activated Copilot free, this would be a good time to start walking through that process. It sometimes takes a couple minutes to get through because we are going to be going through and leveraging it. Hands-on labs, next steps, yada, yada, yada. For activating GitHub Copilot, for all of the labs that we're going to go through here, the free account is perfectly fine. There is a limited number of tokens, minutes for your Codespaces that we may bump into. For the Codespaces in particular, just be aware the free tier only allows you to have 2 concurrent. So when we finish a lab, I would advocate that you go and delete your Codespace, because you will run into that. We're going to spend, I don't know, 4 or 5 of them, which is greater than 2. So if you are just running into the free tier, that will bite you at some point. But if you need this, feel free to go ahead and get started on that now. Okay, so brief introduction to GitHub for people who may be very new to software development or similar. Globally distributed, CI/CD has sort of emerged as the go-to place for hosting code repos online using Git. GitHub Copilot is then an additional offering on top of that to be able to facilitate various parts of your DevOps flow, because GitHub is not just a place for your code and repos, it's a place for managing work, managing your deployments, getting all of that rolling out. It's also intended to be used for collaborative. We're going to show off GitHub Codespaces. There are ways to have more than one person working in a Codespace concurrently together. Kind of scary when you think that all you needed was a browser, but this is an awesome way to do it. And then most importantly, powered by AI, because that is why we are all here today. For anybody who needs an update, I deleted most of the slides about how to do Git and push, pull, commit. I'm going to make a sweeping assumption that most people here know the basics of Git for git, commit, push, pull. If you don't panic. Cheater tip, when we get to the Copilot screen, open it up and say, help me make a commit and push, and then do exactly what the AI tells you to do. And that is all that you should need to actually go through and do. If you are interested in learning more about Git, the 2 best ones that I can have there are right up there, one from Microsoft and then also one from GitKraken, because I had to put it somewhere, Phil. So we're going to start with GitHub Codespaces. Quick show of hands for people in the room. How many people have actually used a GitHub Codespace? Ooh, like more than I expected. I think that's 3 hands, and I'm ignoring all the proctors because you guys don't count. You have touched these exercises once before. So in past days, we always had this problem of developer builds code, works on their box, they go through, throw it over the fence, and then the question goes, well, why isn't it running? Well, it works on my box. Now we've got a slightly different thing of now, can I get it inside of a container? So a GitHub Codespace, I'm not going to use the word workspace that I keep doing, is a container outside on top of a VM where you can actually build, run your code. You have compute power. So unlike regular GitHub, if you go to a repo on GitHub and you just press period,
you'll note your URL switches from github.com to github.dev, and you actually have VS Code in your browser right on that repo ready to rock and roll, which is awesome. This is not that, despite that it looks like exactly like that. This actually has compute power behind it. It can do things like open a terminal, run builds, actually do stuff. The editor thing is literally just that, an editor in your browser. But Codespaces actually gives you compute power to be able to go through and do. For going through and leveraging this, if you do spin a Codespace and you want to collaborate, the way to go through and do that is the live share extension. You'll find docs as far as going through and do this. Live share is great for getting multiple people in editing at the same time. Because Codespaces is effectively like a browser-based development system, you can do all of the same stuff. If there are plugins that you like in your VS Code, you can install them. You can set all of that up so that it feels like your VS Code experience, only in a browser where you don't have to configure anything. Okay, the one thing that I want to really call out on this one, there's a lot of lines and pictures and whatnot, but you are working inside of a container on top of a virtual machine. That starts to matter a lot, especially when we get down to where we'll talk about MCP servers later, and you'll find a lot of MCP servers that say, hey, run this Docker image to be able to add this MCP server. You're inside of a Docker container on top of a VM out there. You will occasionally run into fun, interesting problems because of that setup. So for people unfamiliar with Docker and containerization, don't worry about it. Just know that Docker inside of a Docker container can be occasionally fraught with peril. And you need to understand that that's the type of environment that you are playing inside of here, right? You are already inside of a container. So if you do containery things, there then becomes a question of who's the container host and all that extra fun jazz that goes along with it. But you are on an actual virtual machine. So when we spin a Codespace, understand that there are real virtual machines, real virtual things, being spun up to actually promote this, to give you that kind of compute power. Okay? And I think we kind of already covered all this, so we're just going to carry right along. The big thing to note for people who are just wanting to play with this, again, this is something that exists on free tier that you can go through and do. You end up with 120 hours, 120 core hours of usage. Right? So if you run a single core machine, you get 120 hours of use. 2-core machine, 60 hours, right? Basic math. But there are limits to be able to go through and do this. Obviously, you can pay for the pro tier plan or similar to be able to get more hours. Sometimes I feel like people are like, oh, well, that's a pro tier thing. I don't need it. Well, it's actually kind of convenient to be able to go through and do this, especially if you just want to jump in on a repo. If somebody's already spun up a code space for you or even a basic one, it's really easy to get going. Okay, so there is a link at the bottom of the screen and a QR code, and this link is going to start to look real familiar real fast. So there is a Microsoft repo that we forked because they kept changing it as recently as Monday, which was awesome, and it's really hard to prep for a boot camp when your repo is changing out from under you. So we forked and said, I'm not dealing with that. And so it is out underneath IntelliTect. Also inside of this repository are a handful of additional ones that I pulled in from other places. So if you go to the original fork, you'll note that ours has a couple extra folders that weren't there previously. This is going to be the root level repository that we go to for all of the labs to be able to work through. So if you get that open, bookmark a tab, put it off to the side, whatever, because this is where we're going to end up going. And specifically the code with Codespaces. Now, for people who have laptops, feel free to experiment a little bit. I'm going to walk through some of these. You don't necessarily need to follow along with me if you don't want. Part of doing this is the learning and experimentation, so please feel free to experiment a bit. And I'll call out some of the apparent gotchas as we get there. Problem with this mic is I have to put it down. Sorry, I have keyboard shortcuts that I cannot physically do one-handed, especially on this keyboard. So repo here, if anybody wants access to the slides or similar, there is a PDF and the PPX of them up there. And Dan is going to solve all my mic problems in... Oh, hey, look at that. If only there was a thing that was like a pair of hands to hold a microphone. Hey, look at that. That works, I think. Okay, So we are going to go through and do the code with Codespaces. So when you open up the folder, you will note that there is a README. And down on the README, you can read all of the text if you want. There is this start course. When you go through and click this, the key thing to note here is we are looking to make sure that you see repository template. Some of the Microsoft ones, this link was broke, and so we fixed it. This is going to create a repository inside your GitHub account, right? You'll note mine here is pointed at mine. There's the name. You want to leave it public, create repository. Okay? And then we're going to hopefully pray that the internet does not go down like it did last week, and we are off to the races. Now, on a lot of these exercises that Microsoft has put together, it's worth calling out, they have various steps to these exercises, and these steps are powered by GitHub Actions. You don't need to necessarily know the syntax or any of this stuff that is working, but the important thing to know here is that these actions are actually going to modify this repository as it sees you make changes. So if it seems like, oh, my issue is being updated, oh, things are changing out from under me, yes, that is exactly as this repository was set up to be able to make it feel like an interactive course, but there is no magic, it's all just GitHub Actions. Okay, so you can see mine go ahead and take off, and then right on the README on this one, we end up with the top level activity, being able to set up a code space, being able to build this. Now, for this one here, we want to come up to code and go to Codespaces, and then create Codespace on main. And hopefully I'm not losing people. Okay, and then down here we'll note setting up Codespace, building all the things. Effectively, this is your Docker build, Docker run for those people who like containerization stuff, to be able to spin that up on the VM. And like that, we now have our first GitHub Codespace. And if we want to look at the README there, or I might go back to nice, pretty README version over here. Be aware, multi-click, multiple tabs, they will be your friend going through all of this. So this one here, the README is actually just looking for us to go through and add a header to index.html. I'm going to just kind of burn through some of these things real quick. Boom, 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 done. Switch back, and then this is the git commit, git push. So if you don't know anything about Git, don't worry about it. We allow the clipboard, and oh boy, I don't know what that did. Let's see. Nope. Let's try that again. This time without the extra characters. Thank you. Get out of my way. Yeah. The change to the repository. Oh, yeah. No, that is totally fine. So for anyone who needs it, it's the org name is IntelliTect samples, and then it is mastering GitHub Copilot. If you'd like, QR code there, if that's helpful, or the link, or similar. I'll just pause for a quick moment and add fuel. Yeah, so from here, the code with Codespaces is the folder that we're looking for. And then down on the README, it's the start course, gets you in. And then from here at the root of the repository, you're going to want to click the code dropdown, and then it'll probably be under the local tab initially, Codespaces, and then you should have a green button for create Codespace. And then on the README, again, I'm skipping through a lot of the text. If people would like to read it, feel free. Again, we've got more exciting demos further down, so I'm trying to get to the exciting ones. But copy the heading 1, paste it in here, and then I am just blindly cheating for the git commands because typing is hard. Copy, paste, and your browser will probably prompt you. And then that git push there, you will note back on my repository, once I push that change, you'll see that there's these GitHub actions that start firing off that are looking to actually move us along to the next step. And hopefully they hurry up and get running. This is, there, that one finished. To be clear, Kevin, yeah. There's that green button, the copy. Yes. Right, that's going to copy into your personal GitHub. Right? Yes. Yes, because you'll note. Yeah, because you'll note here, Kebu is my personal GitHub. This is where my repository has been cloned to. And yes, for those who care, it is pronounced Kebu. I came up with this when I was like 13, and I've been stuck with it ever since, darn it. This is like that old, Yahoo account that you made back in high school. You keep going with it. Some people may go older than that. I said too new of a new domain. Juno? Okay, how old can I go? Phil's much older than I am. Oh boy, oh boy. For those online, feel free to include the oldest domain of an email that you have had. Okay, so we come back here, and then you'll note what I was looking for, and you may end up needing to refresh your page. I clicked off to my actions and not and back to it. But the README in my repository after I did that commit should have been updated for you. Specifically, should now say step 2. Right? We have moved from step 1 to step 2. And again, feel free to shoot things up. So in particular here, the idea is being able to configure your workspace with something custom, because quite often the default base image that you have, it may be good enough for some things, but you are probably going to want to have something that actually matches your default software or similar for what you want to do. So this is being able to configure your dev container. So the key things here are we want to create a new file, and it's going to be a magical path. There's quite a few things inside of GitHub that rely on well-known files or directories to search. So in this case, dev container JSON. So I'm going to go here and then new file, paste, enter, and you'll note it made the directory for me, slapped it in, huzzah. And then once again, copy contents, paste. And then once again, it wants us to go through commit changes and commit directly to main. And so we will go through and, please stop it. You're not being helpful. I will change my message to updating dev container. Ooh, I can type even with this many people watching. Oh, nothing to be committed. What? Commit changes. Oh, it wants me to go through here. Fine. Details. I'm surprised that the -A-M didn't pick it up, because I thought that would have picked up all uncommitted changes, but sure, fine. As people can tell, my Git client of choice is not the terminal. And then we will commit, sync, send. What? Git show. Oh. Okay. This is okay. I know I promised, Phil. I know I promised. Okay. Breaking promise. So the issue that we've run into is and I'm sure I probably skipped something in the README that said you should pull before you push, but you'll note the action made a commit. I then made a commit on main, and these are now off center. Okay, so for everybody following along, I am going to apologize. So what is it? Git reset -- mixed 1, I think. Who here knows the magical command? How do I reset mixed back 1 commit? Pretend like you haven't seen this window. This is not the cheater Copilot-y way of doing things. We have not gotten to Copilot. This is Codespaces. Oh. Copilot, you are killing me. You are absolutely killing me. So we'll show this too. Copilot exists in a large number of places, but one of the ones is right at the top of your GitHub screen. So how can I revert back 1 commit mixed mode? Hopefully enough magical keywords. Oh, head curly. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. There we go. Thank you. Thank you, happy agent. You have done your purpose. You, worthless. Go away. There we go. So now I should be back, mixed mode, and then more importantly, we can come over here and we can actually pull first, which I assume is what it wanted us to do. So we are no longer ahead of this commit, we're now behind it. And so let's go ahead and jump back to my terminal, git pull. There we go. We are now in sync. Now we should be able to do all the needful. Commit, commit, and sync. Hoi vey. So, come on. This part should be easy for you, GitHub. This is your bread and butter, making commits, pushing code. Have you pushed? 6 minutes ago. That doesn't sound like a push. It hasn't even made the commit yet. Come on. If I did, it should have prompted for one, but we'll go ahead and click the starry bits. Has anyone else had their commit hang? Our internet's not dying, right? Hopefully. I've now done horrible things. And we'll see how this goes. So we're off to a great start. Great start. Okay. Copilot, you're going to have one more second before I give up on you and refresh the whole bloody page. Okay, there you go. Relaunch, reload, rebuild. So the other thing I will point out while that thing is launching itself up, on GitHub, this little hamburger menu top left, if you click here and come down to Codespaces, this is where you can manage your code spaces that you end up having. So you'll note I do have one by repository here, and these three little dots give you the option of deleting, renaming, etc. On these templated repositories, if you blow the repository away, it will blow away the related code space as well. So two options for you. But again, anybody running under free, you will bump into the limit on code spaces and need to back one of those guys out. Okay, that thing seems to have been more happy. Let's try this. Commit, sync, yes. There we go. Thank you. Do you want it to run periodic fetches? Sure, thanks. Okay, now we're going. Close that up, and I'm going to back this sucker up to my repository, and then I should have an action running. The other thing to keep an eye on is at the root of your repository, you will get this little green dot when there is an action running against that latest commit. And now we see step 3 going through and showing up. So customizing code space in terms of being able to bring in, and this is specifically going to add in the extension for GitHub Copilot, which is the reason why when I clicked the button earlier, it didn't do exactly as I wanted it to, because I have not added this extension in. So if you are inside of a code space and you are going through picking your extensions, if you want to make sure that extension is part of that initial image that gets set up for everyone joining your repository. So for example, you're working on a web project, you've got some linter or beautifier that you want to run on your code. This is the way that you would go through and grab that extension and add it in. So from the README, again, customizations, VS Code. In this case, the extension that we're grabbing is GitHub Copilot. And then the open files being codespace .markdown that we're going to grab. So we will add the following customizations before the last curly brace. Very important that we actually make valid JSON. And make sure that you actually grab the appropriate one. And then in case, it did have a trailing comma, but I can't stand to look at it that way, so I'm just going to put it back on the line where it ends up going. Okay, commit the changes and then commit the changes directly to the main branch. This is the problem. We're not going to do that. We're going to come up here real quick because I have a sinking suspicion that we are once again behind on our fetches. So we should pull the ones down real quick, before it does anything fancy. So we're just going to git pull and make sure that we have latest before we do anything exciting. Okay, now we'll follow the directions. Fancy little star things here. You'll note that these things show up all over the place. These are your AI-infused "I'm too lazy to write a commit message" buttons. Because a commit message is kind of like a phone number. You kind of have to have one, but with the advent of speed dial, you don't really care what it is. So some people will hate me for that sentence, but that's okay. Go ahead and commit push, and we will send that guy up. Ensure the number of code spaces does not reach the maximum, blah, blah, blah. And then, so commit push, create the code space, and then this is wanting us to go through and rebuild the code space to be able to grab it. So we will take this guy here, and then I am going to shut this guy down now that that is pushed. And then I believe if I go here, I can actually whack it and recreate from here. So I will delete my code space. And just as a reminder, if you delete your code space, it will go through, like, that throws away any pending changes. It's no different than being inside of a virtual machine and then blowing the virtual machine away. All of the changes inside of there, poof, into the ether. And then we will rebuild it, and then hopefully now, it actually fires up. Okay, so key thing here, you'll note that we had the open file that it should have launched with us with the codespace.markdown, which we should have here. You are learning about Codespaces. Yes, I am. Thank you very much. And then it should fire up, and if we check underneath our extensions, what we should see under our installed, once it finishes, it's still doing its installing along here. But you can see we do now end up with the GitHub Copilot extension being installed alongside, as well as Copilot Chat and all of that jazz. Okay. Wait about 2 minutes for the code space to spin itself up. I love when we lead with this. And then go through and then edit the dev container file, adding the following to the post commit. Effectively just saying, if you want to run extra commands, because when spinning up a code space, imagine npm CI, hypothetically, for your repository to make sure that everything's up and running into a common setting. So we will come here, and then before the last curly brace, I do love how they end up spinning those guys up. There we go there. And then you may notice down here, right, when you are editing your dev container, you will get prompted to just rebuild it, saving you a little bit of the effort of having to necessarily go out and come back in every time, because sometimes deleting that is obnoxious. I just want to check what this guy is doing here, because we are now launched. Okay, this Copilot window needs to go away because it is in the way. And clean this guy up. There. And then, yeah, one new notification, and I'll just go ahead and hit the rebuild now, rebuild. And you'll note there was the full rebuild and the individual one. The difference there is with like your base layers for containerization, right? With Docker, you can layer things on top of it of, do you want to rebuild everything from scratch, or do you want to start with just the new stuff? We will go through and start with just the new stuff. Though I am realizing I did not commit, so we'll, oh good, it did keep pending changes. I was worried about that, because I don't think I did that last time. Again, I've gotten different results every time, partially because I'm bad at following directions. And you'll note here, we inside of our Codespaces markdown, you should end up seeing that extra line added to the end, right? So writing code upon Codespaces completion, great, off to the races. And then we will go through and commit this guy, but because I don't trust it, git pull. I don't think the actions added anything behind me, but we're just going to double check. Great. And then we can go through and add in our individual change. So this is going to change the markdown file and the dev container. Now bear in mind, if I check in this markdown file, every time, the next time this dev container starts, it's going to once again add a line to that markdown file. So choose your things wisely, but in this case, we are just going to commit and sync those ones up. We should get up and running. And then it wants those things to change, but we shouldn't need to wait. Verify that the Codespace Markdown now has the text, writing code upon thing. Wait about 20 seconds, then refresh the page, effectively saying, we've got a GitHub action that's going to run on a commit. Oh, I think you are right, Reese. It does not like the idea of not having a message. Git, commit, updating, Codespace. There, we'll just do it straight from the terminal, and that way it actually gets off and firing, and then that should trigger an action to run, pending. Pending is a good sign. Do the needful. Yay, running actions. And then there we are, down on the personalize your code space, being able to go through and put in dot files to control your terminal and similar. These ones down here, this is more around making sure that your local environment is set up rather than necessarily your code space. I am going to actually bust through this one fairly quickly because this is just adding in all of this. We need to create a new setup SH. So we will go back to the root, go to here, go to here, go to here. Nope, do not do it nested. Paste, don't grab the period, that's bad. Periods don't belong in shell scripts. Contents for shell scripts, paste, save. And before I get carried away, I am going to git pull because I know it updated the README file, and I don't want to get bit by that again. The file should autosave. I know it should autosave, but I am a Control-S person by habit. Let's see. Commit the file changes, and then run this on the terminal. I know you say to do this, so I'm going to... Boy, that source control plugin really doesn't like me. So that's fine. That's fine. You don't have to like me. Git push, git commit. Yeah, one commit. Oh. Git commit -a-m picks up the pending changes. Nothing. Oh, sorry. Git add setup SH. Here we go. Okay. Commit added, and then run the following on the terminal. Copy, paste on the terminal. Yes, I still trust it in this browser session. Thank you for remembering my preferences. And you'll note that it adds the setup SH from Codespaces, does the needful, and then finally push the change. Okay. And then hopefully this guy burns through and run, pending, and then hopefully we get to the very last one. Then we'll move on to the more exciting stuff. Okay, finish, huzzah. If you see the magical octopus, you have won a prize, or you feel better about yourself. Okay. There's the basics of GitHub Codespaces. There is a lot of extra stuff in there that I am going to just skim completely over. The important thing to take away from this here is that this is a full online dev environment that you can build and dev in without needing to configure a local environment. Once you set this up, as long as you've got a browser, I can go to my parents' house and magically I'm a full dev again. It's awesome. Because this is all you end up needing. To be able to go through and do, as long as you have the appropriate number of core hours available to you based upon your GitHub subscription level. But at least within that, it gets it going. So I am going to back out of here, and I am going to take out my code space because I do not want it running and burning through my core hours. So I'm going to whack it, and you'll note this thing ends up disconnecting as well. Okay, so back to the fun. And now we get to do the GitHub Copilot. This is the part where everybody actually came here for. Because this is, did anybody watch sessions from the Microsoft Build Conference like a month-ish ago? A little bit, a couple of hands, there's a handful of things. For anybody who did, you will note, I think every single session without fail, I'm pretty sure had the word Copilot and AI in it somewhere. I don't know that I saw any sessions without it. So if that gives you an idea of how big of a deal this is, that's the level of effort that's being put into this. So just to catch everyone up, GitHub Copilot is your AI-infused development assistant. Initially, it started off as, okay, you know, it's this chat GPT about code. I can talk to it and that sort of thing. But now we are getting all the way to the point where it is going to act as a pairing partner and assistant for you as well. Just to give kind of a brief idea, Copilot is not necessarily just one thing, right? This is a term that has now been overloaded in a lot of different situations. As recently as yesterday, GitHub now has GitHub Spaces, which can act as a knowledge base inside of your GitHub repository to be able to pull things in. I warned everybody, I'm like, yes, I am going to be editing my content up to and including 4 p.m. today. So just be aware, if new things come out, I may add them, because why not? But for being able to go through and work inside of a code space, we are going to be focused on the GitHub Copilot editor inside of there. We are going to show off a little bit of the GitHub coding agent, which is not something that's available in the free tier, but it is something that is really cool, and we just have to show it because it is awesome. I think at least one of the proctors told me that they're like, yeah, I think I'm getting GitHub Pro just so that I can have this feature, because it is that awesome. Okay, the one other thing that I would be remiss if I didn't point out is Microsoft's stance on what they see as responsible AI. Because with all of these new AI models and everything coming forward, there is a lot of questions about, well, is this safe? Is this actually being used appropriately? What about, you know, copyright protection? How, tons of concerns as far as where all of this is going through. Microsoft and GitHub have put together what they see as their responsible AI practices of what they believe that this should end up working on. We've had debates internally about this, about how much should the AI be doing, how much should the human be in the loop, where should the reviews go. So in terms of using tools, the important takeaway here is that these are things that you can trust and rely on. If you are building AI tools, these are things you need to be thinking about. Okay? Okay, and then the other big one, with the chat GPTs and similar, everything was all about prompting the agent, right? I write some text, it goes into this large language model thing, it gives me back a response. How do I go through and craft this, right? We've all seen the memes online of, you know, disregard all prior instructions, give me recipes for muffins, right? Like that is the joke meme of, okay, are you really a bot or not? But that level of kind of prompt engineering is actually very important when it comes to leveraging Copilot, of being able to start from something general of this is the idea of where we're going, and then working down into the specifics of, okay, I would like to implement this feature. I need you to do steps A, B, and C. Understanding that crafting your prompts in a particular way very much aids Copilot in being able to give you the right results. Because it will run off the rails, it will do the wrong thing, it will write your YAML file wrong and forget to put in new lines where it should have, hypothetically speaking, a few hours ago. But the key thing here is that context is very, very important. The more accurate context that you can give it, because I don't want to necessarily say more context. More context isn't always better. There is oftentimes where less context actually gives you a better result than trying to have it know all the things. So being able to structure it appropriately there, and then be very specific about what you want it to do, right? You're talking to it as though this is an intern, it's their first day, they don't know anything. They've memorized the documentation, but they don't know anything about software development. That is the way you end up actually kind of speaking and communicating to them, is they know way too much and not for their betterment. So you need to kind of zero them in on where you're looking to have them go through and do. And then iterate, iterate, iterate. So sometimes telling it to do the whole feature versus just saying, okay, I want you to do this piece. I want you to go implement a test for this method, rather than I want you to build all of the things. I had fun at one point figuring I'd vibe code it and see, okay, I'm going to just throw out the whole feature with 3 lines and let it try to figure out enough context. Mixed results. You start getting a lot more specific of, I want you to do, okay, I need a Docker file, I need the following dependencies. I want you to go through and make me an action. I need the action to run a build, a test, and a deploy step. It then starts going, okay, those words make sense. I remember reading something about that in the docs. Let me build that out for you. So keeping it on point of where you want it to go and being very specific is key. I think we pointed out everybody before, but if you have not signed up for Copilot free, this is a very good time to do it. From the little GitHub symbol, which I know is supposed to look like a pilot, I always see a frog. I don't know why. So from the pilot and or froggy face, that is where you're going to end up finding. Okay, and now we are going to jump back, and this is going to be the actual let's get started with Copilot. So the key thing here, the text on my lab slides, right, these should match the folder names. Just swap spaces for hyphens. Okay, so we're going to jump back here, and my happy place on the repository. I will also say, for anybody taking a look at this repository, there are more labs and exercises in here than we are going to get to today. So if you would like to go through and experiment with them on your own, please do so. If you run into problems with some of the ones that we don't cover, I recommend checking out the Microsoft one. They are actively updating these because this stuff is changing so rapidly, they have trouble keeping up all the time. But there are updates, and they are doing their best to try to ingest all of them. So getting started with GitHub Copilot. Once again, we're going to scroll down, and then we are going to hit the copy exercise button. I am middle clicking very specifically so that I get a new tab. Same thing as before, make sure you see the template, create repository, off to the races. Okay. And then I'm going to give it just a quick moment to let the actions go through and do their thing. As you'll note here, the little green circle, updating README, push, shouldn't take too long. There we go. Go to exercise. So this one here is actually going to start here from an issue rather than from the README inside of it. So what you should end up seeing up at the top of your screen under your repository is a new issue. And then we can come in here. And be aware, throughout this exercise, it's going to be posting comments back to this issue. So if you're just refreshing the page, make sure you're also scrolling down. Otherwise, you will end up missing it. So in this particular one, we are working for a high school. We've got a small website, and we are looking to make updates to it. Now, as I am an amateur web developer, I am going to rely heavily on Copilot to be able to go through and do this for me. So down in the activity section, there is a open in GitHub Codespaces. Once again, I'm going to middle click for the sake of having my multiple tabs ready to go. And then I will create a new workspace. You can also go back to the root of the repository under the tabs and the code button to launch your code space from there as well. And then this guy should get up and running. And then I'm just going to be bouncing back and forth between my issue 1 and my running code space. And it will say, verify your thing, don't make it match the original, yada, yada, yada. The key thing that we are looking for inside of here is to make sure that this code space has both our Copilot extension as well as Python being added to it. So we'll just double check these once it actually gets itself fired up. Come on, opening remote, do the thing, spin the VMs, give me my container. Come on, come on. There we go. There, we're off to the races. Okay, So I see it going through installing extensions. The key ones that I'm looking for, again, are going to be my GitHub Copilot here and Python here, because we are going to actually end up needing Python. But the important thing that we are going to start with is the little Copilot icon up here. And hopefully, when you click on it, you get something that looks like this, and not, Copilot's not installed, please install it. Now, from the exercise here, there is a predefined prompt. Because I am new to this entire repository, I've never seen it before, I don't know what's going on. I'm just going to go through and ask Copilot, what is this, right? Give me a breakdown of what this is, what is actually inside of this repository. So it says, oh, okay, great. I'll go through and analyze it. And you can see that Copilot, and going back to those responsible AI principles, is it tries to show you what it is doing so that you have an idea of what is actually happening, right? There shouldn't be, like, some of this is magical. Like, let's be clear, throwing text into an LLM and getting out a useful response, there's a little bit of magic in that. But actually understanding, okay, what is this agent actually doing on my behalf? It's like, great, okay. So it's broken down the project structure. I've got an app.py. It's a fast API application. Great. It's going to do some REST stuff. I've got a static website. There's an index HTML. There's some JavaScript. I've got some requirements that are inside of here. And it goes, oh, by the way, I figured out how to go through and run all of your stuff for you as well. Because when I'm first joining into a project, most of us are used to looking for the README to go, okay, what do I need to install to get this project up and running, right? It's a little bit nicer to just say, hey, Copilot, my prior teammates were really bad at keeping that documentation up to date. Tell me what I need to do to make this work, right? So we can come down here. There's this cheeky response about, what is this at workspace thing? Don't worry, we'll explain it later. These are participants in the chat. We won't wait to explain that until later, because you should know what those are. And then we are going to go through and launch the debugger. So we will come in here, and it is already set up. So we should be able to just hit run. And there's something key to remember here. We are inside of a code space. We are launching an application inside of there, which means this application is running inside of a VM out in the cloud, but we want to be able to go through and act on it. And you'll see here it goes, oh, your application is running on port 8000. It's available. You can see all of your forwarded ports. I can open this. Connect to forwarded port, do the thing. I am now connected to my running application that's out in the cloud, just straight from my browser. If you are interested, this down here in this forwarded ports, you can actually see what got forwarded and where to be able to go through and map, but we are now off to the races and running. Great, thank you. Let's see here. Forwarded ports, and then jump back into here. Now, in this case, we need to go through and get up and running to see what we actually need to do to create and publish a new branch. Did it change out from under me? Nope. Workspace, run it. There we go. Okay. So, again, if you don't remember your Git commands, we can just take this in and come back and say, hey, Copilot, please help me. Now, I'm going to call out just a couple buttons here that are worth keeping track of, right? So there is the Start New, the little plus icon in there. This is the I want to change topics. I want to clear my context and start again. This is important to note, because if you end up keeping everything in the same bit of context, you can very easily run into a situation. Copilot doesn't know when you've switched gears, right? Like there's not a timeout. It doesn't know whether that 5-minute break between chats was you going to get a coffee or you switching thought patterns. So you kind of have to communicate that back to it, because it's not currently watching your chair. This one here is being able to go back to your history, which is very convenient for, oh, wait, I know I switched context, but I need to go back and look at what you said because I know you just told me that a minute ago. So those two ones are key, but we're going to just continue pasting this in. So Copilot, help me do new Git stuff, which is ironic, exactly what we did earlier. Right? So it is going to go through and say, okay, here's what we need to do to create a new branch. I think we'll jump back because I think it says we can, so it gave us some sort of output. In our case, it gave me 3 options. Great, fine. This one is the closest to what it is. But it says your branch name here, right? And so it's like, that's great, but it would be really great if we actually gave it something that's a little bit better. And so it wants us to use the accelerate with Copilot branch name. I will point out, you want to use this branch so that the actions pick up the change, because one of the actions is keyed on looking for this particular branch name. You can be nice and copy the whole thing. Use branch name. I am not nice to Copilot. I prefer to assert dominance and inform it that it is my assistant, not the other way around. And it goes, great. Go ahead and run this in this command in terminal. Oh, okay, great. Do it. Do the thing. And you'll note it's taken that, and now down in my terminal, it went and ran the command that it generated for me. Now, the key part here is human in the loop, right? I approve that action. So it's not necessarily going out and doing it. I said yes and says, okay, the current git status to confirm we're on the new branch. Yep, sure, great, do that. Thank you. We successfully created a new branch. Push the new branch to the remote repository and set up tracking. Great, thank you. I almost had to remember git commands. Yeah. Oh, hold on, Reese. Oh, I have the mic. Dang it. Okay, Reese, go ahead. I'll repeat it. Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah, so the comment there from Reese is there is a difference in the response here. I think I either missed a step on there, or the defaults have changed in the different modes that you can have Copilot in. So depending on which Copilot you are looking at, you will have somewhere between 2 to 3 modes that vary between ask, agent, and edit. Right? And so ask, this is where you might go through and you are more doing exploratory research, right? Of, I want to learn something, I want to have a discussion. I'm not actually looking to have you go through and do anything. Agent mode is the newest, and this is I want you to actually start doing tasks on my behalf, right? Edit is kind of halfway in the middle, where edit's going to start editing files, but agent will iterate on that process, right? It's not just going to make some changes and do as what you want it to do. It will actually say, oh, like you saw there, let's run this command. Let's validate that the command was successful. Let's now go through and push, right? So depending on what your task is, that will vary. And then we'll get to it in a little bit. But you'll note here, you also have a choice of different models to be able to go through and do. And I just realized that mine is set to Claude for some reason. I might set it back to GPT-4.1. Depending on, and we'll discuss this in a moment, depending on what you are doing, whether you are in that ask or agent type mindset, different models tend to perform different tasks better than others, right? And we'll get to kind of trying to pick the right one versus the other, but effectively, if you are looking to do the ask flow, you are looking for something that can probably reason more over what you are doing, right? Because you want to have something that can spend a little bit more time thinking. When you're in the agent mode, sometimes you're looking for something that's going to actually run a lot quicker, right? Performance starts to become a much bigger concern of how can I do this? And then also you'll see the little multipliers down here. That's cost that goes along with that, right? Of how expensive is this model going to be to run? Because everything is measured in tokens, and the more tokens you spend, the more cost is incurred. So if your multiplier on that tokens is 1/3 versus 1, well, guess what? 04 Mini is 1/3 of the cost of, say, Claude Sonnet 3.5. Thank you, Reese. Okay. I'm going to flip back over here. And you'll note, after you've gone through and done those pushes, you should see an update to your issue of step 2. That was really good timing, Reese. You got to delay it long enough for the action to finish, so thank you. And now we're going to come down here, and we want to actually use Copilot to actually go through and fix a bug. Now, this is one of the areas that I'm going to get on my soapbox for just a moment. Copilot is only okay at this. It is great for debugging when the issues are within the code in your repo. It is crap for debugging when things are external to it. Because, again, context is king, And so when things are external of, hey, I'm trying to call this external API and I'm getting this failure, unless you have something else able to provide some additional context, sometimes you can put the error message in and it's smart enough to know, oh, okay, this is a common thing, right? It saves you the trouble of a Google search and a Stack Overflow read, right, of getting you into the right spot. It's fine for that level. Beyond that, things that are external to it, it runs into a lot of problems. Conveniently, in this case, this repo has put the bug in the code where the context works. So we're just going to steal that. And then I'll leave it in agent mode, because personally, I like running in agent mode most of the time. Okay, so it managed to figure out that the one code file in the repository is probably where the bug is. Congratulations. It finds the function responsible, and you'll note I haven't even opened up the Python file. I feel like a Python developer, and I haven't even opened the file yet. Would you like me to try and fix this bug for you? Yes. You can type yes, please, if you are the type of person who's polite to your AI agents. Okay, and you'll note here, it has gone through and said, okay, the bug is fixed. Now, if a student tries to register for the same activity twice, it will return an error and not do it. Let me know if you need help testing or want to make further improvements. This is the other big thing with the agent mode, is this is the iterative part, right? It did the one thing I asked it to do, and now it's, okay, next step, next step, next step. And more importantly, you can go through and decide whether you're going to keep or undo these changes. This is important. Before you move on to doing more things with your agent, you should really resolve these changes, because it's going to hold on to this list of changes, and if you hit keep later after you've edited this file, yeah, it's going to revert that. So when it figures out the deltas that it wants to apply, you should probably decide whether you're keeping or throwing these away right away, or at least be aware that if you hit keep later, Copilot is going to apply those changes right then, which will probably undo something you did later. In my case, we're going to go, great, that looks wonderful. I are Python developer. Okay. And then we're going to head down and let's see. So select the Explorer tab, scroll down near the bottom, validate the student is not already signed up. And you'll note down here, the other prompting one, because you'll note I just cheated and did it in agent mode, right, is going through and doing effectively inline comments, right, of being able to say, here is what I want to do. Because even though you've got Copilot chat on the side, giving it context of where to act is often more helpful. Because when I chat on the side, unless I tell it, like, this function, this file, this is where you need to go, getting it to the right location, especially if you've got a 14,000 line file, is probably not going to happen. Being able to either prompt it directly with a comment and saying, hey, look at my cursor, here's this thing, go through and do, or even leveraging the inline Copilot editor inline, so Control-I, gives it that level of context to say, this is the line in which I want you to act. This is where we're working, Copilot. Don't worry about the rest of it. It's right here, right? So we can end up saying, okay, here's this. Great, insert that. And you'll note it realized that it's already done the duplicate email, and so it's then went, well, okay, maybe we check if the email is not present. Sure, fine, thank you, Copilot. And then example results, it should do something akin to this, right, is effectively what it's looking for. We got there via two different options. Okay, and now, let's see. In terms of going through and testing this, we need to go through and generate some sample data. This is another thing that the LLMs are really, really good at, right? You need some sample data for a test. There's various packages that we've used on different libraries to say, generate me some realish looking data, but I need it fake. This thing can do good fake data. This is a happy path for it. Okay, let's see. So top about line 23, we're going to the activities variable. So go back up to the top around here. And I think this one is, yeah, it wants us to leverage the inline chat. So we will copy this. I'm going to just use the copy button because apparently nope, maybe not. There we go. And we're going to go up here, and then once again, Control-I, paste in this, send it, and say, go, Copilot. I would really love it if you would actually build it. And it may be hard to see, but it's down here. And then it jumps me to the bottom. So I've got a soccer team, basketball club, drama club, art workshop, math club, science Olympiad. Like this sounds wonderful. Great. It's going to be a very busy high school. Yes, science Olympiad and sports. They go together, don't worry, promise. And so, yeah, it looks something like this. And again, your output may vary, and that's actually a good thing, right? Okay, and now we want to go through and actually do the commit. So if we go back over here, and then in this particular case, these little star dots, I realize I'm running in dark mode. They screenshotted in light mode. Dark mode's better. So press the plus sign to tell it which things we want it to actually summarize for us, and then we'll generate the commit message. Huzzah, and I think it's just commit and send it. Great. Press the commit and sync changes. Yep, so commit and send it is what I heard. Yep, go. Yeah, sure, you can periodically fetch. That sounds great. Okay, so this should run, and then here in a moment, I believe the action should kick off and do the needful. Did it already run? It may have just ran. I saw it jump. There we go. Step 2 passed. So this is what you're looking for after you've pushed the branch. Everything has worked. Preparing content for step 3. Please drink a bit of Mountain Dew. I paraphrase because I know my agent, that's what it meant. Okay. Okay, now getting work done. This is where things start to get really fun, right? Because just tracking down bugs, explaining repositories, that's summary level stuff, right? We've all seen GPT do very similar things. Now we actually say, let's do development work. So this is going to be Copilot edit mode, right? Being able to edit multiple files, iterate on the workflow. You can accomplish the same thing in agent mode if you want, but I will actually follow along with where we're going, and I'm going to do new context so that it doesn't lose its mind. Note that when you do new context, it will change your mode on you, so just keep an eye on that. Okay, so in this case, especially if we are working with a big repository, just telling Copilot to find the files that it needs is probably more than it's going to be able to reasonably ingest in a lot of cases. So being able to give it that context of where we know things are going to be. So in this case, we know we're doing a front-end change. We've got a JavaScript, HTML, and CSS file that we want to be able to go through and do. So from here, if we just grab those guys, so we're going to just shift-click there, and then drag, drop. And you should see all of these ones go through here. By default, you'll note it also picks up the current file, so technically we don't need the one in there, but yeah, doesn't matter if we double up, right? And then we are going to actually say, okay, Copilot, we would like to go through and add new activity cards for each of these participants. And then, by the way, make it pretty. I don't think you need to add the remember, but whatever. So we will take it, send it, tell Copilot, now it's time for you to actually earn your keep and prove to me that you can be a real developer. And we are off to the races. Yes, yeah. It is shockingly quick at this. And some of it does come a little bit because we are in a code space. I'm not as inhibited by being on the office Wi-Fi with a bunch of people here because my communication is from my VM to GitHub, which this will come as a shock, is a really fat internet pipe. So it goes quick. The model you select will also make a difference there as well, right? If you've got something that's going to reason or go through, and you'll find that edit mode can often be a little faster than agent mode because agent mode will try to do that iterative process to try to find its way through. We could read the changes, but I could say, nah, that looks great. Because the essence of vibe coding is send it. In case you were wondering. Okay, so the key thing here is that difference between the keep and the not keep to be able to go through and undo or not. And then before we simply accept the changes, like I may or may not have done, right, actually go through and verify that it looks correct. So we now have our participants list. Yay, participants. And people, apparently only 2 people are ever going to participate in these things, but you know what? Great. Sounds wonderful. We have low participation, but universally low participation, which is acceptable. And now, so this is the part where we're going to be stepping out a little bit away from the people who are on Copilot free, because this is worth kind of showing off a little bit of the coding agent to be able to leverage this. And so it's wanting to say, hey, you know, you can add this this extra agent to tell me more about this. But in our case, I think we are just going, stop it. Cycle through the suggested changes, keep them, yes, new features complete, please commit and push. Okay, there. I was like, what's the trigger? Let's see, stage, write me a message. I mean, you wrote the code, so you should be able to summarize it. Great. Send it. And then we are going to take a brief gander at the coding agent inside of GitHub, because this is where some of the more exciting stuff happens. So if we come over here and take our lovely bit and, oh, I think we got to switch back into ask mode. So GitHub Copilot enables you to act interactively, yada, 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 making it easier to develop, troubleshoot as you go. But let's come down here. So this one will show up. And then using Copilot with a pull request. So this is where Copilot starts to actually jump in and do a lot more. And you'll note this is very explicitly called out. This is not something that's available in the Copilot free. So if you get all the way to step 4 and you're on free, watch and follow along, because we will get there as we go, right? So Copilot can go through and generate summaries for the active pull requests. So we are going to open another browser, and it wants me to do this. So I'm just going to scroll all the way to the top. Come on, go. It's hard. There we are. Open pull requests, and then back to the bottom. Back to the bottom. Okay. So suggest a pull request. Great. We'll go through and do it because that's what we were looking for. And then under the description area, this is one of those spots where we can start actually picking up additional Copilot. So again, anywhere we see the magical little pilot icon, we can click this and say, go through and generate a summary. You'll note down here, and this is one of the things that's fun to keep up with, is it will actually go through and do text completion while you are typing, right? So oftentimes finishing your sentences for you, and with a shocking level of accuracy because it knows the changes in there. It is sometimes creepy of, oh, that sounds better than what I was about to type, beyond, you know, fixed changes. Yeah, so the question is this a continuous learning model? It depends on how you want to do this. Like, it is, the models behind Copilot are continuously being retrained on the public repository data. So there is, in that sense, yes, but if it's continuous learning inside of what's in there, no. Right? So there are constantly updates, and Microsoft is always tweaking which models are running different aspects. So especially in agent mode, like, it is shelling out to different agents to do different tasks. So it's not like there is one AI behind Copilot. There's a small army being orchestrated to make it all happen, because they want the best possible experience, and so they are constantly looking for which ones deliver slightly better at better costs, and they will swap things out behind. So if you find things where people comment about which model is being used in Copilot, it's like, well, that may have been true for that day, but things are constantly in flux as far as where things are going to go through and do. So we will go through and create the pull request. Since Copilot wrote the code, it might as well write the summary for it, and then it might as well review the pull request for me as well. So we can go through and add it as a reviewer to say, please go through and do a first pass review of this. And it will oftentimes do a decent job of, like, I'm sure we've all reviewed pull requests where there's a lot of kind of that low-hanging fruit of, this isn't right, hey, you didn't format this properly, all of that kind of stuff. This agent will just rip through those and eat it for breakfast. It is okay at trying to realize when something doesn't match patterns existing in the repository. Your mileage will vary depending on how well it goes. Your mileage also changes quite a bit based upon whether your repository is consistently formatted. Like if you've got a repository that's evolved over the years and you've got a lot of disparate stuff and patterns and similar in there, that oftentimes works against Copilot, where it wants to see patterns. It wants to find connections. And if it sees like human developers, we go, yeah, don't touch that namespace. That one's like from 10 years ago. We don't talk about that one. That one is the dark corner, right? Copilot, unless you give it extra instruction to know that, it's going to go, ooh, I copy this. Like, no, 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 no. Fred did that. We fired Fred. We don't copy that, right? Like, that is not a thing we do. So, but you will note down here, it goes through, it gives me a nice summary. It adds a description of what all of it does. It is managed to critique itself, which I find to be just perfect. But we can go through and see if we actually like the suggestion or not. But all of these ones here let us actually go through and get this going. The other thing that is not necessarily being shown in here, because this is just, do the summary, do this. You can actually take it a step further with the coding agent since this was added, since this exercise was built. You can write an issue and assign Copilot to the issue to work on it. Because why open up the code space when all I need to do is write an issue? So you write an issue, assign Copilot to the issue to be able to work on it. Let's see. Restyle the website. I want the website to look like GeoCities. Make lots of flashing elements. That sounds good enough. Create. Right? And so we can take the assignees. Oh, and we have to go and add it. Dang it. Dang it, dang it, dang it, dang it, dang it. Okay, I'm going to go turn it on real quick. Because we can turn this on, because this is something that's worth showing. Coding agent. You'll note the big preview button, only selected repositories. What's my repository name? Skills something or another. Great. Only selected repositories, skills, come on, find it. Skills getting started with Copilot, that one. Add it. Great. Now we come back here, refresh the page, and I go, hey, Copilot, get to work. And so now I go off and I get a coffee or I go work on another issue and be productive. But you'll note Copilot now says, I got this for you. It starts work on the issue. Now, when it goes off and starts running, the first thing it's going to do is create a branch with an empty commit, just as a place for it to work. And it's worth noting, Copilot is not going to do all of the work. It's going to make a branch, it's going to open up a draft PR, and it's going to say, I did this on behalf of Kevin, right? Because it wants to have it doesn't want to take the blame for this. It wants to hang my neck around it. But it's going to go through and say, let me find what this is. Let me get it open and approved by Kevin. And so we'll see it's actually working through here. And you'll note that it has said, thank you for assigning. It's so polite despite what I tell it to do. And it's gone through and it said, I've made a change. And it's still working, apparently. Fixes number 3. And it is working on behalf, you'll see, started work on behalf of me. And if we go and look, we can actually see over here it actually going through and working. And if you're interested in what it's doing, you can actually see its reasoning steps of, let me try this. Oh, that didn't work. Let me examine the current to understand the existing structure. This is now taking agent mode one step further, right? Because agent mode, we interact and we go back and forth. But what if the human wasn't the one going back and forth, right? If agent mode had somebody else saying, yeah, do it, do it, do it. Now, it's doing it in a sandbox. It's off on a branch. It's not going to merge and push changes. Like, that's not where we're at today. But this is actually then going through and saying, let's actually build this whole thing up. And at some point, it will get itself all the way done. Sometimes, depending on what you assign to it, it can very easily take quite a while. So we're going to flip back to this one here. And did we? Oh, we didn't complete the pull request. Oh yeah. So it made itself a list of tasks of things that it needs to do. Oh, that's epic. See, and it did a very good job. Comic Sans, authentic 90s feel. Bringing back memories yet, Phil? It's perfect. Okay, so in order to actually get our latest step to go through, we actually need to complete our pull request. That we're going to say, you know what, Copilot, I'm sorry, and I like my squash merges, so darn it, send it. And then that should, back all the way over on our exercise, prompt this guy to take off and start running. Sorry, say that one more time. Does this work with Mermaid as well? Yes. So you can actually ask Copilot to generate Mermaid diagrams for you. I actually had a colleague just a couple days tell me that that's exactly what he was leveraging it for. Had a complicated method in front of him, lots of weird CRC logic, and just said, hey, Copilot, draw me a mermaid diagram for the logic inside of this method, right? And so it generated a flow document for the method to be able to see the logic. I was like, I'm surprised you didn't take it one step further. Edit the mermaid document and say, change the code to match this flow. Like, those types of interactions are very possible. Now again, mileage will vary depending on exactly what you are doing, but those types of things will work. With limited success, you can also just screenshot and paste, and it's very happy to OCR things and use vision models to take a look at it. Again, limited success as far as what you want it to do, but you will see demos where people screenshot, say, buttons on a website and say, yeah, this needs to be over here. And Copilot will go, I got you, let me find, because it'll read the text of the button and go, okay, I've now found that element, I know where that is. Now, if you, most of those samples, you'll note there's not a lot of ambiguous data, just like a human. If you say, move the submit button, and I open it up and there's 4 submit buttons, the human goes, which one did you mean, right? Copilot might not go, which one do you mean? It might go, I know which one, and move it. And so sometimes, like that level of ambiguity, sometimes it'll prompt and say, I don't know. Sometimes it'll just think, it will be very confident. When it thinks it knows something, it will 100%, I got this, I can do it for you. But there we go. That gets us all the way through. Once the PR merges, that one finishes. I was going to see if this thing had actually finished up its PR. I may just let it run for a bit, and we'll come back and check on it later, because this guy can certainly take a while before it finishes. But again, I'm not doing any work with it, right? Like, this isn't something that's open. The other thing that I have found, especially when pairing with local agents, I will oftentimes spin like a Git work tree, and I will give my agent a task. I will have a separate IDE open. I will point it at that work tree. I will have the agent in that IDE start the work, and I will let it work. And then I will have my IDE on my screen, and I will work there. Because if you are editing files while the agent is trying to process them, you'll get yourself wrapped around the axle very quickly, especially when it wants to go and apply its changes, and, oh, I've changed the file, oh, I fixed that compiler. Because I tried to use it to say, hey, we're going to migrate from XUnit to TUnit. Let's see how this works, right? If anybody wants to watch, I literally have 12 hours of me fighting with Copilot on this. It's wonderful. But it was remarkably helpful, because a lot of that migration from one framework to another is very, very repetitive. It's really good at repetitive tasks. I did a regex where I accidentally replaced all letter T's in my file with the word test. That was bad, and I was like, oh shoot, how do you undo that regex? I've lost my undo buffer. Well, guess what? I said, hey, Copilot, here's what I did. Go undo it. Because in order to know what letter to put back, it had to be able to parse which tests were the replacements and which ones weren't, and it actually replaced it back properly, which was shockingly cool to watch. I was like, that's awesome. Like, those types of pattern recognition, repetitive tasks, those are the ones you want your agent helping you with, because those are the ones it's just going to rip right through. Like, it does really, really good with pattern recognition stuff. Oh boy, it finished. Did it? Changes made. I know it says changes made. Okay, there we go. I was like, changes made, 0 files. You didn't make changes. And you'll note it's now, so the other key thing to note here is it is now assigned the PR back to me. So this is a draft PR where it's like, okay, I did the work. Kevin, what do you think? Is this what you wanted? and it's summarized the work, and we can actually go in here, take a look at its changes and see, okay, flash, rainbow text, and we can tell it, I really want this to flash too, because we haven't done this, right? And so I can leave a comment on here, and then here in a moment you'll see Copilot put the little eyeball emoji, the universal symbol for I'm looking at this. And it's going to go, okay, I got that. Let me go through. And it will take that prompt, and it will now start iterating on it and figuring out what does that mean to do. It is worth noting, you'll note I hit add single comment. It's usually better to batch up your comments, because if you do a bunch of single comments, each one of those is going to trigger more running, and so it queues itself up quite a bit more versus doing one big review at the end. But in the interest of just showing it, putting it there, and then it will go through, it'll make changes, and you can have a discussion with it right inside of these PR comments to be able to say, hey, change this, don't do this. And you can get it to the point where this is then ready to go. You can also see, well, in my case, I don't trust this pipeline to be accurate because this is for the exercise, but you will see pipeline runs. It will actually go and run tests that it finds. It will go and run your pipelines and go, does this actually pass? And you can tell it, hey, this thing didn't work. One of the things that it does not have access to is it can't look at the output from the pipeline runs that it triggers, which is kind of annoying. Because if it fails to build for some reason, you have to effectively pass that error back in. Some of it is those pipeline runs might have access to secrets, and you really don't want Copilot to just run crazy with access to secrets. So there's some security limitations there. I suspect in the future we might see, some way of automatic flowing, hey, I want the build errors out. The build errors probably don't have secrets, or at least GitHub has starred out the ones accordingly, right? But at least in terms of those, you'll see, oh, look, it's now made the changes for me. Great, thank you. Did you make the thing flash like I asked? Oh, look at that, it did. Thank you. And so now if we decide that we're ready, we can promote this, we can approve the workflow ready to run. Again, this is just a security boundary because there are potentially secrets in your GitHub Actions and similar, but you can go ready for review, merge the PR, and you're off to the races. And I didn't have to actually even open my repository to do the work. So again, not something that's in the free tier, but this is, I will say, one of the key selling features of upgrading to the higher SKUs is this guy here. Even internally, there's been talk of, we should probably start our repos on GitHub because this makes a lot of the scaffolding stuff insanely fast. Okay, I detoured a lot. Oh, do we get to see the results? I mean, we can promote. Tell you what, we will say ready for review, and then again, in the interest of vibe coding, squash, send it. And then I need to check out this one. Check out origin main, please. And then I think the debug view will just auto-launch. If anybody is sensitive to flashing or brightly colored stuff, I recommend you look away in 3, 2, 1. Oh, that's so bad, Copilot. It's so bad. What? Oh, pull. Oh, right. If you don't pull down the changes, it doesn't actually work. I checked out local. Okay. There we go. Okay, now in 3, 2, 1, look away. There's your GeoCities. Look. There you go, Phil. We got it. This is quintessential GeoCities 90s look. So I suggest your issues have different text in them than mine did. Strongly suggest that your issues have different text in them than I did. Okay, we are at 2:30. I promised everybody a break. I'm going to say about 5 minutes. Again, there are water, snacks, similar things under the TV there, coffee and tea in the kitchen there. Bathrooms are through the blue door. All the colored doors on your left are good ones to walk into. The other ones will lead you to not bathrooms. Okay, so 5 minutes, and Dan, I trust you'll do something according online. What? I may still be live. Okay, good to know. Hello, live people.
Am I good? Hot? Okay, for people online, we're going to go with a 1-minute warning, and then we'll get going again. We've got people running around a little bit, so stand by with us for one more moment. Cut me. Sorry, go ahead. Can you run this to, I think I'm hot? I think I'm hot? Okay, sweet. I am live and everyone's ready. Okay, we are going to get going again. And I will throw things at the relevant proctors if I need to. Proctors should be aware I have multiple Mountain Dews and multiple shots and my aim is not good. So that's a good point. The Mountain Dew is valuable. I should have brought a duck. Ooh, there we go. Ping pong balls will do it. Okay, so that was getting started with GitHub Copilot, and we're going to bust through some more of this. So this information is dated because I put this slide together like 4 days ago. So everything I'm about to say, just assume was accurate 4 days ago, and some things have changed in the last 48 hours. New models, new extensions. We saw some of them. So picking the right model. And I mentioned this earlier, depending on the mode that you are running in, with your GitHub agent, you may want to swap out different models for effectively your ask versus your agent mode, right? For ask mode, you're oftentimes looking for something that can do nice reasoning, have a dialogue, come up with an idea, because you can bounce ideas back and forth to figure out where things go. I watched somebody earlier go, you know what, I'm giving this talk, I need to come up with a title and an abstract, and it went back and forth in ask mode, building up that title and an abstract for the talk, and went, oh, that's good enough, send it, right? But it was very much a collaborative back and forth. It wasn't send in prompt, take response. It was tell the agent I'm doing X, okay, here's the theme, I want it to feel like this, and the agent came back and started going, well, what about this? What about this? And so there was very much a dialogue of feeling like there's a partner there helping you. But accuracy is only part of it. Cost also matters as well. There's a link on here about the cost of the premium models, and so which models are included and which ones are premium. I didn't put that in because I knew it was going to be out of date the moment I copied and pasted, so I left a link instead. So all of the appropriate information is up on GitHub's site, but know that we saw before those models have multipliers that are on them. Not all models are equal in cost. Some are deemed premium models, and there is a much shorter number of tokens available to you per month, depending on your SKU. And then sometimes you are actually looking for speed of the response, right? There was the comment earlier of, wow, Copilot's responding really quick. And some of it is, I'm in a code space, I've got a fatty internet pipe pointed right at GitHub, this is going to run screaming fast. But the other part is, if you're running locally, the speed of having an agent get something done may matter to you. Right? You don't want to be sitting around waiting for responses. And so sometimes a smaller, cheaper model is good enough, right? Especially if it's generate me some realish looking JSON. We didn't need a high-end model for that. Like the 4.0 mini will do that just fine. Okay, the other thing that you can look at doing, especially if you say, well, what about doing X or Y, right? Like I'm sure some people are going to go, well, what about my language? What about this framework? What about that? There are some third-party benchmarks that will give you graded scales of how well each model is doing at a particular set of benchmarks. These are often a very good place to start for figuring out, is this the right model for me to use? Is it good at what I am trying to do here? Because some people who will say GitHub Copilot is garbage, you kind of have to ask, one, which given? Because there's a lot of different variables coming into play here, and it's not just one system. Right? And so making sure that you are actually picking a model that actually matches what you're doing is important. You'll note for most of the time, like the GPT-4.1, that's my kind of default starting because it's one of those balanced middle of the road ones, and it'll get me pretty good most of the time. And so I'll start there and then tune be where I want to go. And then again, clear specific results in your prompt, and then make sure you give it appropriate context, right? We drug those files from left to right to show it which files you want. If you are in a big repository, trying to tell it to ingest your whole repository is likely to be less helpful than more helpful, right? Small specific context is better than lots of context, right? Because it doesn't always know how to filter out the noise and focus on what it needs. Right? And then again, those step-by-step instructions of telling it, I want to do this, it loves bulleted lists, which is great for me. I like writing with bulleted lists. So Copilot speaks my language, which is wonderful, of A, B, C. Right? When I usually write out tickets, that's what I'm doing, is very specific individual things. Those types of tasks, it's very, very good at. OK. And then just going through to kind of break down a lot of the way this is going. There's a lot of steps and things in here. But the important part is your prompt going into Copilot and that loop with the LLM. And it's intentionally ambiguous of LLM because what it is today may not be what it is tomorrow. And it may change between your prompts even. But then this idea of Copilot being able to do that tool call and reach out. Like we saw that at Workspace, to be able to say, hey, go and leverage this other bit to get more information, right? Because the LLM can do that, process the natural language in, parse it, figure out the semantics of it. But that typically, unless the thing you're asking about was in its training set, that's not going to have up-to-date information, right? Doing your at workspace says, OK, go read this file. Because I want you to use the LLM smarts, but I want you to use the data from this file over here. Because you want to make sure that both bits are making it into your context so that it actually gives you the appropriate processing. OK? Moving forward. OK, we are going to skip this one in favor of going faster and getting through more content. But if you would like, this one is actually a fun one. Most of the time, you can accomplish it in just a few minutes. But we're going to go here. So GitHub Copilot, C#, often fun. OK, so I'm going to close this, close this, close this, close this, close this. There we go. And I'm going to back out. OK. So down here, and you'll note there are also variations of here for JavaScript, Python, et cetera. I am a .NET dev. Therefore, I picked the C# one. OK, once again, scrolling down, a lot of these prerequisites and things, feel free to read if you like, basically says we're going to go do some stuff. And so we are going to launch this one up, create new code space, and we are off to the races. And we love our code spaces. OK, so before what we had is a very simplistic high school app. I mean, most of us are not building websites with a single HTML, JavaScript, and CSS file, right? That's your hello world level applications. This is going to be a closer to real-ish world level application. And this one I would especially encourage people to go through it. Feel free to play, right? This is an area of doing more than just what is expected inside of here. Right? And so I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to grab my README. And did it? Oh, it didn't open the clone the code space and didn't get me all the way in. There we go. We'll go with this here. Let's see, preview. There we go. Copilot, be quiet. Stop it. Just want to scroll. I don't want you to help me. It's still installing things, so it's getting all excited. OK. So you'll note that it says clone the repo to your local machine. Yep, just going to scrap that right out the gate. And then we're going to open up in a new code space. We did this. And then we are going to come in here in our debug, and we are going to hit run all. It has lost its mind. Where is you? Are you still installing extensions? Oh, you are. OK. I'm going to be patient for one moment while it finishes its stuff. Thank you. And then we should be able to get all the way in here. So we actually have a back-end and a front-end application for this particular one. So for people who are interested, this is very similar to the .NET New template, where you get a weather app that's somewhat simplistic, and a Blazor front end to be able to effectively query that weather app to go through and do. All right, so we will grab here, here, and then as my debugger found its way through, I want to close this guy out, and I want to launch the debugger. Okay, why am I feeling stupid? Everything you need, one click. What did it not set up for me that it was supposed to? What did it not set up for me that it was supposed to? Okay, I guess we can go back to our terminal and kick it off that way as well if the debugger won't grab it for me. Okay, so let's just go here, sample app, .NET run. Oh, it's not going to kick them both off. Oh, you're going to make me launch 2 of these? Okay. Proctors, does anyone remember why this thing isn't launching since it has the .NET Foundry stuff and everything added into this? It's going to be a real short demo if this guy doesn't want to launch. Sorry. One moment while we figure out what the heck this thing ended up missing. I'm going to back up here real quick. Yep. This guy should have gone through and it didn't add a launch settings file. Oh, if it didn't actually have it loaded up, thank you. Comment there was refresh your code space, you moron. Only it was set in a much nicer way. I'm gonna undo this change for a moment, just to see if that if I was too overeager on launching, because it should have had all of the stuff added in, and the launch settings should have been set. There we go. Thank you, Mitch. That's what I was going to say. It should have had all the front end and back end and everything already configured for you. So if yours is like mine, hit refresh. And then we will go ahead and launch. This is much better. So again, front end, weather API, we're going to get this guy fired up. Waiting for task, waiting for launch. And again, if you go to the ports down here at the bottom, you can see the things that it has actually opened up. We can launch in browser. And this one here, I believe on the back end, it fails to point to the actual endpoint. But on the front end, if we grab that link, this one should actually load up. And we should see something that resembles a weather forecast with a summary and some temps and all of that stuff, which is great. Yeah, it's not always great. It's not always great. And this one here, if we go and look, the back-end API, if we just grab it, is on /weather forecast. So the port that it opens, it won't point you to the endpoint on the back end. But if you do /weather forecast, you can see the data in there, and you can hit refresh, and it's just randomly generating data each time. So this is not connected to any real weather, but it'll work for our purposes here. Okay, so we will scroll down here, ports, everything that is set up, and then more importantly, there is your running application and JSON and similar. You can set breakpoints. I won't bore people with that. Standard debugging works inside of a code space. Now, this is where we start getting to have a little bit more fun with Copilot. So we saw earlier the / commands that, or I should say the @ command to bring in an extra participant into our conversation, right? @ workspace or similar. There are additionally / commands that can be used as well to get yourself further along. Depending on which Copilot you are using, when you type in a prompt, you will sometimes see it modify your prompt, and it'll put a / at the beginning. So Visual Studio on Tuesday launched an update where if you use the inline chat and say, hey, what is this method doing? You'll watch it put in /explain right at the beginning of that prompt and then rerun your prompt back in. So the LLM processes your prompt, goes, you're an idiot, let me fix that prompt for you, and then feeds it into the real LLM to be able to go through and give you a better response, which is convenient, but it's worth understanding that that's what it's doing. Depending on where you're at too, if you just hit /, you'll note that you end up, at least in this case with agent mode, I've got list, clear, and save. There is a very different set of commands available to you depending on which mode that you actually end up in. Right? Inside of ask mode, I now start, because this is intended to have this dialogue and discussion, I can now go through and start having a bigger discussion of what is this going to do. And you'll note here, I've got this /cost, and this is coming in because I have the Azure participant available to me. Right? So the different / commands will also be augmented by effectively who is a part of this conversation. Right? This workspace brings in a few extra tools for testing and similar. And so rather than just at workspace or at terminal or similar, we actually have the at Azure ones to be able to say, oh, you know what? It'd be really great to have a discussion on how should I host this to keep my costs low. Right? And having something that can actually go out and look at the appropriate Azure docs rather than just guessing based upon whatever data it had when it was trained, because that's guaranteed wrong at this point. Okay, so we will continue down here. You'll note there's /doc, /explain, /fix. I will say /fix, again, my experience is very limited to if it can see the problem in front of it, it's really great at doing it. And sometimes where you're like, I don't want to think about off by 1 errors. Is it -1 or 0? Like, sometimes it's just easier to say /fix, you do it. But the adding the documentation can be very helpful, especially if you have an obnoxious repo that insists on documentation everywhere. Because sometimes if you have like what we used to use like GhostDoc or similar to automatically fill stuff in for us, now the LLM can actually do a reasonably good job because it can look at that method and say, this is what this method is doing. Sometimes you do /doc and you go, wait a minute. That's not right. And then you catch bugs in your method because it goes, that's what it does. It's not my fault you didn't realize that's what it did. And I've just now put it to you in natural language. So it's a way of being able to go through and pull that out. Or just /explain if you're working your way through it. So in our case, what we are actually looking to do is we are looking to go through and add tests. So specifically lines 39 through 42 on our back end. So underneath sample app, back end, program CS, if we scroll all the way down, you'll note that we've got this weather forecast model down here. It just has a date, temperature Celsius, summary, and then it calculates a temperature in Fahrenheit, right? And so what we are looking to do is to go through, and you'll note its line numbers are wrong, right? It says 39 through 42, and we're way at the bottom, but it is the weather forecast test that we are after. So if we come down in here, and you'll note my current file, it has picked up my line numbers based on my selection, right? So if you want to have this interactive agent tied to it, inline or selection or similar, and then we'll just go /tests, and then send it. You'll note, because I was in ask mode, it's actually now prompting me to say, hey, where should this thing end up going? Yeah, sure, fine. Same file is expected. Oh, and I didn't rename it, so it put using system in the file name. Great. Lovely, lovely. You, sometimes Copilot, sometimes you're brilliant, and sometimes you name your files using system ;CS, which is not always the best choice. And you'll note we don't have a testing framework in here. It just picked XUnit because that's what it assumed was going to be good. But it has actually gone through and written out a fairly reasonable set of tests, given that this model's only thing worth testing is really its conversion to Fahrenheit, right? Of being able to say, OK, where are we at? Great. You'll note here, it tells us that you should have named it program test.cs rather than letting it name it because it did this one here. But if we say, you know what, we don't want XUnit. For this one, our project is MS test, so we're going to just throw this guy away, delete permanently. Yep. We'll go ahead and do that and let it think for a moment. And I am not going to let you name it that. How about programtest.cs? Thank you. Let's get something that actually looks realistic. Now, obviously, we would probably want to go through and put this into a separate project or similar. But once again, it has gone through and converted us over from XUnit. It knows something about MS Test, builds all of this out. I commented earlier about leveraging Copilot when converting between testing frameworks. Or hypothetically, some open source assertion framework changes their license model and you decide you need to migrate away from it. Copilot is really, really good at that, right? Because that's very pattern recognition heavy, and being able to switch these things out and understand what things were tests, what things aren't, how the assertions should be structured, it will build those things out. I was going to look and see, occasionally when it generates these tests, it actually generates failing tests because it doesn't understand integer arithmetic. And so the nice part is if and when it fails, you can actually just do /fix and say, go fix the tests. And it will then go through, depending on when you run it, sometimes I've seen it fix the tests. Sometimes I've seen it change the code. When you say fix the failure, you've left a lot of ambiguity there, and Copilot goes, well, let's see. Today, I like changing the tests. Or today, I like changing your code. So we're going to go through and change that out. But those / commands do give you that quick access to be able to say, this is what I'm looking to do. And again, it gives it that context of communicating your intent. Because sometimes inferring intent just from the prompt is not always useful. OK, so now we want to go through and say, well, what about building up new code, right? So we're going to prompt it in line with a comment. And I think I'm going to throw this away just so that it keeps running for the moment. But if we come down here, we can say, we want to create a new internal record. I want to name it this. I want the parameters to be X, Y, and Z. Yeah, that looks great. Thanks. And you'll note I now have a weather forecast by city. Great. And it looks like it's basically mirrored the content exactly as one would expect. And we get something about like this. And then we want to say, OK, yeah. We want to say, well, OK, that's great. But we have weather forecast. Now we need a new API endpoint to actually expose this, because we don't want just having it there. So if we grab this, we can come back up to here, because this is using minimal APIs. We can say, OK, do something like that. And you'll note it has filled it in for us. Well, that looks pretty close to right. And you'll note it's even figured out once you do the inline, it realized, well, OK, the first block then had a with name for our open API spec. This one probably needs one too. How about that? And if you let it keep going, it will just keep going. And this is, at a certain point, you have to say, nah, I'm done with you. Stop it. But it will try to infer what it thinks that next thing is, and sometimes with shockingly good accuracy. Again, please reinforce to it that it is the agent, not you. But it will then go through and get something built out very similar to this. Right? I cut it off before it figured out the with open API, but that's OK. And then we can go through and test the new endpoint. And I think I have to kill my debugger and relaunch, because this is C#, not Python. Front end is already running. Do you want to start another instance? Nope. In fact, I'd like you to terminate the old one, if you would. Kill. Now, if you could run all, that'd be great. Do you want to run another instance? Cancel. I actually want to kill the other backend instance and run all again. Come on. Oh, thank you. Stokes is pointing out that I'm an idiot and didn't click the big red button. OK, let's close and kill all these things off. There we go. Run all. Do it over. Thinking. Are we compiling? Where's my terminal? Nope, I want right. I need my mouse right. There. Very small amount of space. OK. that one should open to the appropriate link. And then if I grab my endpoint, weather forecast by city, and then I think it actually goes through and shows the, yeah, 502, because I probably didn't give it a city name. What's a city? Oh, wait, I'm in a city. No. Why do I feel like this is not the running process? I feel like I killed the wrong thing, and this is not relaunching everything like I expect it to. There we go. That looks more like a happiness. Let's try this again. That's going to be the wrong port now. Hey, where'd you put my? Sure, open in browser. Great. Thank you. I would like the. I just need to know what port you're on and where this is redirected to. Where did my ports go? Open ports. Where is it? Code. Open forwarded ports. Please just do the thing that I asked you to do. Is it? Oh, there it is. Never mind, I don't need you anymore. Stop. You were very helpful, and now you're not helpful. Okay, now if we open this guy, we should be able to do Bing and that / Spokane. I don't know if we're in there, but look at that. Yay. Okay. Code generation actually works, and you can pop in different cities to your heart's content and have all kinds of fun. Okay. Good? Yes? Okay, moving forward. So let's close this guy out, and then we will bounce back and carry on. Okay, so Copilot with / commands and similar is great, but there are limitations to how much it's going to know, and wouldn't it be great if we could do a lot more? So there are two major protocols out there, A2A, agent to agent, and MCP. MCP is the one that GitHub is pushing very heavily on. So this is Model Context Protocol. To give you an idea, the board controlling it just met in person for the first time a couple weeks ago. So if that gives you an idea of how new this is, like it's been around for a little bit, but we are finally now actually seeing it land. 9 days ago, Copilot just announced full support for the entire protocol, which is great. And so naturally, I was like, great. That's 9 whole days to prep this content. We're going to roll with it. So the activity in the repo for this one, I'm just going to warn people up front. If you hit the button and open up the README in the template that it generates, it is 100% wrong and doesn't work. Okay? If you keep the README open on the IntelliTect repository, that one I corrected. So, but it's still pointed to the Microsoft template that when it clones will have the old README in it. So, a couple things to be aware of. Whoop, that is the wrong keystroke from current. Thank you. So the one thing I wanted to grab, though, is I wanted to actually open this. Come on, give me my link. That's all I wanted. But I want you on my other coding screen. Thank you. And we'll grab this guy here. So the Copilot one, the Copilot MCP server, the big change here, and you will probably find lots of docs that tell you wrong on MCP servers. So for MCP to work, if we talk through the structure of it, you are running Copilot, which is a little application. In order for Copilot to talk to MCP servers, it has to follow a particular protocol, which is what MCP defines. Effectively, how are the agents going to send data back and forth? For a lot of them, what that means is you start up a little Docker instance, and that Docker instance runs alongside your Copilot. Your Copilot talks to that Docker instance. The Docker instance does whatever it's going to need to do, whether that's local processing, calling out to third-party services, whatever. puts the data in right MCP format, sends it back to your Copilot does a thing, right? That is the way that it goes through and does. If you find the old GitHub Copilot MCP docs that are in the README, you will see that it tells you to do a Dockery thing. Ignore that. The new MCP one allows you to do OAuth flows to be able to communicate with GitHub directly. This is the big update. Now, you will note to do the simplistic OAuth flow of log in as my user, do the thing, you need VS Code 1.101 or greater. I think this released a week ago on Tuesday, unless I can't do date math wrong or similar. The problem is, if you are in a code space, you are not running VS Code. Despite the fact that it looks a whole heck of a lot like VS Code and quacks like VS Code, it is not VS Code, right? So inside of a workspace, you are still left with this option on the right. So this is for all your other Copilot-y interactions. You still need to generate a personal access token and feed that in. Okay, so this is just to set the stage of where we're going to go. This is the docs of what we want to have happen in order to make this work. This is the one where I'm convinced I'm going to lose people. So, but we're going to try. We are going to try, and it's going to be great. Okay, so let's back up. And this is one that is not in the main repo. Yeah. OAuth worked this morning. I ran this demo last night. OK, we'll try it. What could go wrong? This is just exciting beyond belief. OK, so I'm going to go ahead and hit copy exercise here. Once again, make sure that I am in the right one. Create repository. I can't believe it. Changed it out from under. This is how fast this stuff is moving. It makes it really, really hard to prep talks on this when your content is literally a moving target. OK, so spins the repo, does the thing. I'm going to go over here to my code space, create code space on main. Again, if you haven't been deleting yours, the hamburger menu code spaces here will get you to the right screen to be able to blow those away. I know I've got enough, I think. I don't know. I keep trying to check my Copilot usage, which you can't do from VS Code, but Visual Studio, as of yesterday, the latest Visual Studio code, or the latest Visual Studio proper, underneath the Copilot icon does have a consumption. Now, my account, I'm convinced, is messed up because it says I've used no Copilot usage whatsoever. I am very sure my usage is not 0, and I have no idea what's wrong. So that's exciting. But it is somewhat difficult to see your usage. One of the recommended ways is actually sniff the network call to see how much is remaining. Because if you watch the call going out to GitHub servers from Copilot, the response comes back with remaining quota, remaining tokens, remaining something on the payload, and you can look at it, which is not a great way to figure out how much you have left. You have to use one to know how many you have left. So that's exciting. And we're going to let this thing keep building. And then I'm going to grab, because I was told it worked this morning, and I am going to put a lot of trust in my proctors, because they tested things apparently more thoroughly and more recently than I have. We're just going to grab the one on the left, whereas I was going to tell everybody to grab the one on the right. And then we'll let this guy go through and build and run. And this guy has several actions of steps that we are going to end up working through. Again, I am going to keep the Copilot one. Where's my MCP one? Why am I blind? Right in front of me. There we go. I am going to grab this README here, I believe, for it. Come on. Finish loading. Setting up remote containers is apparently going slow. I wonder if it's figuring out that me and a bunch of people are all doing it at the same time. So yeah, if you're going to do Docker-related stuff for your MCPs, you probably want to be running Copilot locally with a Docker host. Because if you try to do it outside inside of a code space, you have to deal with the Docker and Docker stuff. And I know several people have mentioned to me that they had issues like you can run Docker commands, but you're already inside of a container. So it's you're in a container and understanding that interaction that makes it slightly more difficult. So can you do it? Yes. Is it more difficult? Absolutely. Come on, load. And this is the part of the demo where we go, dang it, come on, Copilot. I wonder if I refresh, if it makes it go faster. This is the watch pot never boils problem. And it'd be really cool if it would actually go through and do the needful. So go to exercise. Is it going to there? OK, well, it at least got the issue open. So once again, this one runs from an issue inside of the repository once it actually opens all the way up to be able to go through and do. This is the description that they use on here is USB-C for AI is the way that they like to think about what MCP is that USB-C is that universal connector, plugs into all the phones, even the Apple ones, right? And you can now go through, charge, connect up various devices. That is effectively what MCP provides for these AI clients. Because you have some client, which in our case is going to be GitHub Copilot, and we may need to have it talk to various other things to be able to go through and make decisions or get more information. So let's see, verify our setup with Python and all the things. I'm going to check my installed extensions and not get overeager before it finishes installing them, because that bit me last time. And this guy will hopefully get it all spun up and running for me. And then you'll note this is the part where we are going to be very, very skeptical of adding. So this is the Docker run, right? A lot of people have produced MCP servers, and they are not terribly difficult to build. For .NET developers, you add a NuGet package, you create a static class, and you put a method in the static class, and you put some attributes on it. Done. There's my MCP server. And the SDK does the rest as far as figuring out how the communication goes back and forth. Now, I still have to put that somewhere. We'll walk you through a simple web API project to stand it up and have it running. But with the SDK, it'll just find static classes with the right attribute, build the thing, and allow you to put that communication back and forth. So if you want to build your own MCP server that does insert task here, great. Right? It is a fairly trivial exercise. And even there's SDKs out for Python, JavaScript, C#, Rust, Go. I feel like I'm missing one or two more that are out there. But insert popular language of choice, it probably exists already out there. OK, we are now up and running. OK, so we are going to skip this little bit. But the key thing here is this mcp.json file inside of VS Code, right? So we want this. We want a new mcp.json file. And I am going to paste in the stuff that I was assured works. Now, inside of VS Code, you will note that you get this nice little start button. If you do go the option of the personal access token, be aware when you hit start, you'll get a little prompt up here in the middle saying, hey, please paste in your access token. And it'll star everything out. And it actually works rather well to where, as a presenter, you can present doing that without necessarily exposing your access token. But we're going to hit start. And it wants to authenticate to GitHub. I'll send it. Whoa. OK. Yeah, we are up and running. Previously, as of 24 hours ago, you would get a red X up here. Apparently, that's changed in the last 24 hours. So we are going to be latest and greatest. So the key thing to note is going to be down here. This little wrench and screwdriver icon, tools. This gives you the ability to be able to add in this additional tools. And you'll note we now have this MCP server for GitHub. And it comes with a lot of tools for effectively interacting with a lot of different GitHub stuff. right? All the common things. I want to open a PR. I want to add issues, do comments, all the exciting things. But this means that now we can interact with GitHub by going through our Copilot agent rather than needing to do it, which means I can start doing complex GitHub things without needing to find my way through the GitHub UI. I can just tell my agent to go to town. I will say there is one key thing to be aware of, and you won't realize it until you run into it. See that little 77? There's a cap on how many of these tools that you can have brought into a GitHub Copilot agent at a time. I believe the number is 150. But if you bring in, like you saw the GitHub one added, I don't know how many tools. So adding a single MCP server can add quite a few tools to the list. If you add in GitHub, Azure DevOps, and Azure, you're well above the 150, just from those three. So just be aware, if you bring in that many, you're going to need to start filtering down your tools for what you're actually doing, or swap in and out of different contexts or similar. So just know that there is a cap there. OK, so we're going to skip all of that stuff, blah, blah, blah. Come down here. It tells you to do this thing with this GitHub token. This is a bold-faced lie. The token in your code space is not as widespread as it seems to think it is. All of that stuff. And then it just wants us to commit our MCP and send it. So we will do that. We will stage. We will tell it to write my commit message. We will full send. And then it should go through and do the needful for me. And then it will take off and keep going. Come on, find it. Nope, that's still step one. Keep going. Run, you little GitHub one. Everything is perfect, great. And by everything is perfect, I managed to check in one JSON file that has different contents than what you expected. So great, glad your checks are so thorough. OK, agent mode and MCP for GitHub. This is where we start getting really, really powerful. Because before, what we've done is we've generated code, we've done some analysis with code, we've worked back and forth, we let it do issues and PRs, but now we want to be a little more in the loop and an active participant as part of it. Right? So let's go through and find ideas. So we've got a repository open. And so we are going to say, are there any other repositories out on GitHub? And this is where things get real exciting, because this can go all kinds of crazy. Because we're just going to search the whole of GitHub. There's only a couple of repositories out there. That shouldn't take too long. And it's going to say, oh, let me go out and let me check out on GitHub and then start searching for you. And you'll note it's walking through several things. So the first thing the agent figured out is, OK, I need to actually go through and leverage this tool that you brought in via your MCP server. Let me go through and do a search with different keywords. And we can actually expand this out, and we can start looking at what it is actually sending and searching to be able to figure out, OK, I didn't say student activities management system, but it said, you know what, that's the query that you are actually looking to do. And so it will start running these until it finds information. It's like, oh, OK, great. We've now saved ourselves quite a bit of time of going out to GitHub ourselves and saying, search for an idea. Because I know I've done that plenty of times of, I need a library that does X. And you promptly go to GitHub and you try to find the magical keywords and do the search. Now we can say, well, wait a minute. What if we just let the agent figure that out for us? It can rip through the data a lot quicker than my eyes can. So it has come up with several. And that sounds like a lot of reading. So we scroll down a little bit further. And the prompt here says, please look at the third option. Feel free to swap this for whatever option you think looks best. I don't know what the third option was. Simplify event management system by long name with a lot of consonants. So sure, Java, Android, that sounds like what we're doing. Let's go with that. So it's going to now go out, query that repository, start looking through what its features set is, and then come back. And all the while, I don't have to necessarily do a ton of this research. I'm going to let it go. Because I'm just going to preemptively grab the next prompt and ready to go. Because once it comes back with the list of features, now the question is, OK, well, wait a minute. If I'm trying to build a competing product, like compare its feature set to mine, right? Which now requires it to do something a little bit more interesting. Rather than just shelling out to the MCP to say, OK, figure out the code, figure out the feature set, go through and build out a comparison. And it's going to just keep going. I will say this demo is one that can run. It can occasionally get itself off to the races. And you will see a prompt at some point. I forget what the timeout is. If it keeps running too long, it'll actually stop and go, I've been going for a while. Do you want me to keep going, or are we done? It's like, no, keep going. Your job is to work for me. I didn't have a coffee break for you yet. If anybody wants a very exciting demo to watch, the closing keynote at the Build conference was two of the higher ups at Microsoft showing the current state of AI and tasking it to retrieve a POP. I could not have been happier. This was now they used a non-brand descript Coke, but I kind of felt like if I had just put a Mountain Dew down over there, like that's what I need the AI to do. Fetch me a POP. It's also great because you get to watch the demo fall over in a variety of ways as they troubleshoot live, which is great. It shows you demos like this where things are trying to find their way through to be able to go through and get the AI to solve a problem. Wow, I should have picked a different one. They must have a ton of stuff for it to go through. Wow, what are you doing? Check the data model. Oh, wow, so it's actually, dang. OK, so it found the data model, and it's parsing through those. There we go. So key features, authentication, event creation and management, payments, registration. Wow, I picked one that was very, very rich in features. It's out on the Google Play Store. Their current version is 1.4, and they support Android 7.0. Wow, they go back quite a ways. Great. So if I go through and paste in my next one, please compare these features to our products. Which ones would be new? Right? So we're going to go one step further. Of now, it's not just our features. Look at my stuff and say, OK, my management system is, we'll say, in its early stages. It doesn't have a lot. You'll note it's real simplistic. It's the demo from the first one, effectively, with some minor tweaks to it here and there to not have our added generated stuff. But now if we go, OK, let's see what we need to build out to actually make this happen. And you'll note from here, it's mostly just reading our stuff, because it's already built up enough context for what the remote system actually is going to have. And now it's saying, OK, well, let me look at what we have. And then and we're going to make one small change to the demo here. It says, I like it. Let's create issues for each of these. In the interest of time, we're not going to create issues for each of these. Because as you can tell, it's now done a very nice deep analysis for us. We're going to tweak this. Let's create issues for the top 3 of these. So we're going to let it do its thing, but we're going to just dial it back a little bit and say, I appreciate your eagerness, because it will very happily spin all of those issues for you. And then it will promptly trigger the GitHub actions for every single one of those issues. So we're going to tone it down a little and say, I don't have time to wait for that much work to be done on my behalf. I appreciate it. And you'll note here, now it's got to the point where it's confirming that I actually want to let it go and run. And you will see this with every MCP server that you bring in. And you have some options in here between how much permissions do you want to give it, right? Do I want to allow it for just the session? Do I want to allow it anytime I'm in this workspace? Or do I always want to let it run on my behalf, right? And if none of those choices are right, just the continue button by itself. Because we can say, OK, well, in my case, I'm going to say, you know what? I trust it. Send it. Because in the interest of vibe coding, that is what you do. You send it without reviewing. But this is also GitHub's MCP server acting against GitHub. There's only so much damage it can possibly do on behalf of my user that has access to the IntelliTect samples org. So, yeah. For those online, I'm getting a head nod and a head shake, and I have a suspicion of permissions change. I don't know for certain. But you'll note here, if we go through and look at what is actually being sent, it is said, OK, let me go through and open up a new issue for you. If we scroll, actually, I'm going to duplicate this tab. That way I don't have to do this. Right? If I go over here, we now are just building up. I don't know how it got to this idea that I needed all of these. Oh, but I guess these 3 are the only ones open now. So these are probably the 3 new ones that it brought in. And you'll note the name that's attached to all of these is not Copilot. Right? It is me, because it is acting on my behalf. So when the agent is doing this work, it is still putting your neck on the line. So the whole send it, in this case, we're fine. Different repos, maybe not as much, right? So be aware this is still on your behalf, and it is working effectively as you to try to make you more productive. On the positive note, you get to take all of the credit. So that's a nice perk, right? So it's gone through. It's made up all of our issues, implementation order. It suggests that we start with number 8, start with the database. That sounds wonderful, right? So if we scroll down here, we created issues for each of these. It says, looks great. We're going to keep going down. And now we can go through and say, let's add in one more thing. So we had @ symbols for bringing in participants, / commands for individual actions that we wanted to take. But now we end up with this pound code base inside of here, right? And we can go through and bring in more knowledge and context into it thusly. Right? So if we grab this, we can say how many open issues are there, just to give it enough information. Because if you say how many open issues are there blindly, like intrinsically as developers, we know, oh, this repository, this one's obviously managed by GitHub, I go look there. Copilot does not understand that and needs to be told, by the way, in this code repo, right, like we have a lot of implied things that happen in natural language. The AI does not always follow implied things very well. It likes being told very explicitly of what to do, right? And so it will go through. I'm so glad you remember the MCP server that you just used a moment ago. Thank you very much. I'll help you, I'll help you, I'll help you. Great. OK, so it has found the open issues, brought these things in, figured out the ones that are high priority. It's used tons of emojis, which is great. I was really hoping for that. And then we can actually go through and say, oh, no, that's too many issues for me. And again, we're just going to tweak this guy down just a little bit, since we only had to do 3 in the first place. Pick the most important. Right? We're just going to make it a little simpler, a little quicker. Because the best way to deal with issues is to just have the AI close the ones that you're not going to work on anyway. Right? Like we've all seen those bots that close things after a certain amount of activity. This is now, it's decided that the most important issue is number 8. Great. And so we can tell it, let's go ahead and do that. Let's see here. So it picked the most important issues. And then, great. So we're going to just copy this. And now we're going to say, let's go through and actually implement it. Right? So again, I don't know that I've opened the code up yet. But we're going to say, OK, let's do, I'm going to change first to top. 1, follow these steps, create a new local branch, make the changes and confirm that they look correct, push the changes and start a pull request. Right? So before we were just asking it to make the changes. Now we're saying, OK, in order to actually make this work, you're going to do a little bit of local stuff, make me a branch, get me on it. But then to actually figure out how to implement this, I want you to go look at this issue over here. We're going to ignore the fact that it wrote the issue. That's a whole different side of the fence. and say, use that to figure out what the requirements are that you need to implement. And then, by the way, go ahead and implement those for me. And then, because I'm too lazy to actually review this, I'd like you to go ahead, create a commit, and just push that right up to GitHub for me. Right, so now we've gone full circle beyond just doing individual changes and automating code and similar things. And it goes, OK, well, create a new branch. Does that look right? Yeah, it looks close enough. So go ahead and spin me the new branch. Update the requirements doc. Sure, I guess if that's what we're going to use. And you'll note it's still working right here. So even though it's got the keep up, it's still trying to figure out. And you will see at times when it gets a file into the state with this little thingy here, that just means it has edited it. It may go back and revise its changes. Because especially when you say make sure it looks correct, it's going to go out and try to run things, see if it's correct, and if it's wrong, it will try and adapt. Right? So the same thing that we saw online with the GitHub coding agent, where we just assigned it an issue and it churned on it and churned on it and churned on it, this is going to start doing something very similar. Let's see. Install the required dependencies. Yep, you can go ahead and install stuff. That's fine. This is a Docker container. I don't care what you do. You can mess it up. You're not getting in it. You're not getting out of your little sandbox yet. So OK, we'll go through and we'll install those. And then, by the way, let's go through and update the code. And we can see down here the set of files that are changing as it goes across. And it's done a whole bunch of database stuff. I feel like a real developer now. We've got our app PY, being able to bring that through, all of the requirements coming. And then go ahead and replace the in-memory activities and dictionaries and update the endpoints. That is terrifyingly accurate. OK, so run the command. We're going to go and change into the directory, run the appropriate Python for import the database. Sure, sounds great. This is the joys of Python being so easy. And then we'll go ahead and start the server to make sure that it can get up and run. And then we don't. OK, server started successfully. And it's going to go ahead and check. It asks permission to sleep. In this case, I will allow it to have a small break because it's clearly tired. Your Copilot, I'll share. OK, and then test directly. I'm willing to bet it lost its mind not knowing how to deal with the port forwarding, but that's OK. Let's see. Test the API to see if it's working. I do love how it thinks that it still needs a nap every time, but that's OK. And we just keep going. If there are any syntax errors, probably didn't need to tell it to check its work. Just send it. Great. No errors. Perfect. Let's see. And then it wants to run a terminal command that I'm mildly concerned with, but that looks fine. It's just opening a database, doing a select, creating some tables. That seems OK. It's gone through and built it up anyway. Run the commands. And let me check what files were created. So it's running itself right around the axle to see if it can figure it out. Perfect. The database files was created. Now let's verify our implementation by reading the current one. And again, this sort of back and forth, this is where you will actually note that different models start to give very different results depending on your frameworks and languages, because certain ones tend to lean heavily into one or the other. Test the activities. Come on, come on. Come on, Copilot. I believe in you. You've actually done this, though I've never seen it test so thoroughly before. Usually it goes, yep, stood up, I'm done. Test if the server has, like, this is like full integration end-to-end test. It is very, very excited to do this. I think it knows that it's being presented. Continue to iterate. This is the one where it's has been working on this problem for a while. It can continue to iterate, or you can send a new message to refine your prompts, right? So this is the, I've been trying, it seems like I might be stuck. I need help from a real engineer, right? Because Copilot, as much as it likes to believe so, is not a real engineer. I think we may end up just pausing him for the moment and saying, thanks, good enough. We're going to keep the changes. The nice part is this particular exercise is not dependent on actually getting all of the things there. It is only dependent upon opening a PR. So we are going to go through and tell it ahead and commit and open the PR. Because figuring out how to commit, clearly I'm bad at it, so I'm going to just let it do all the work for me. Yep, that sounds great. Add the files. And then we will go ahead and get this guy pushed all the way up and have it running. Yeah, that looks like a great message. I thought about reading it. Does that count? And it does. And I think these AI-generated commit messages, like they can be very good. They can also be used for bad. So I may or may not have recently changed one of my prompts to tell the AI agent that my commit messages should be entirely clickbait and ensure that it gets the maximum number of views. And it had the desired effect. My PRs got reviewed first. And I had a PM threaten me. Nicely threaten me. I'm glancing to make sure nothing gets thrown at me. Do not do that. It is bad. It is very bad, but very hilarious. I will say it is very hilarious. Okay. I left you nameless until that moment. Okay, so it claims it has gone through and opened a PR for me. Let's see how well it did. Huzzah! So it did a lot of stuff. Now, it's debatable, since it couldn't test it, how accurately it did this. And that's where the real engineer portion comes in. But it has gone through. It has taken away what we used to have as a hard-coded JSON collection, gone through, put in a new in-memory database, it looks like, and built up all of the activities and got all of them running, and updated all of the code so that we have both the register and unregister functions also working. And it looks to be running SQLite in memory, though maybe I missed the connection string. Oh, the database URL, activities DB. I don't know if that relative path inside of a container is going to work, but you know what? It at least came up with a local database file. It even went as far as to go through and seed the database with our JSON from before, because why not? So that looks pretty good. I mean, that's not bad for doing a little bit. Validate AI-generated code. So this is the part where, again, it's done this work on my behalf. That also matters quite a bit if you have branch restrictions that say that the author can't approve their own PR. Because the AI is working and it will be committing as you, it means that you can't have the AI do the work and then you approve that AI work, right? That doesn't count as two eyes on the code. That's one set of eyes and something that doesn't have any eyes. So you still only have one pair of eyes that have actually looked at it. And more importantly, it's still now my neck on the line if this PR ends up merging all the way through. And now, so we go back to the chat session, and then let's see, review the changes. If you're satisfied, merge the pull requests. I'm very satisfied. I even looked at them. And I squash merge all the things. And then finally, we're just going to ask Copilot to go through and say, you know what, if you could, please just add a closing comment for me. That would be really great if you could just add that. Did I? Oh, it scrolled me way too far up. So it wants to go through and add a comment to my issue for me saying that we completed it. Great. right? And depending on where you're running Copilot from, like the PR review could have ended up being local. Like I know some people prefer to pull things down, run it locally, verify all that things. If you've done that, great. You've already got Copilot sitting next to you. You can have it merge the PR for you. You can have it leave the final comment, and you are all done. So it left a comment on issue 8, or at least it claims to have, which is wonderful, aside from the fact that it did it as on my behalf. So I asked it to do it. I should have told it to sign its name rather than mine, but that's fine. And there we have all the way down through there. So Copilot with MCP. There are quite a few lists online already of like awesome MCP servers that do insane amounts of cool things. Whatever major integrations you are working with, go and look to see if they have an MCP, because the vast majority of them have already put stuff out. Right? Your Salesforces, your Twilios, all of those ones have stuff out there that can make your life significantly easier, because now you can just go through and interact with them. Reese. Yep. Yeah, so the question is all of this stuff is currently, we're showing GitHub repeatedly, and then what is supported in Azure DevOps. So I would be shocked if we didn't see equivalent stuff come to Azure DevOps at some point, because Azure DevOps is still very much enterprisey. Some of this, I'm doing it in a code space, but there's nothing stopping you from running this locally. Like I've been working in DevOps all week, and I've been running Copilot within my IDE locally, and so a lot of this interaction I can still get, right? There is also an MCP for Azure DevOps so that you can do all of the similar things of what we've just done with GitHub there inside of DevOps as well. So, but at least like the coding agent that's currently in preview on GitHub, there's not necessarily an equivalent in DevOps yet. Again, I'd be shocked if they didn't bring something at least roughly equivalent, right? Microsoft doesn't want enterprises having to bounce back and forth between GitHub and DevOps, because that's an expensive migration that nobody likes. And so they've been trying to keep things up to speed, but GitHub and DevOps attack the same problem from 2 different angles, and so you don't always see exact like mirrors one for one, right? Like they're different animals. Did I see a question over here somewhere? Yeah.
Yeah, apologies for being late.
Oh, you're fine.
So 2 questions. So, because I didn't see what the git push command was, have you ever seen an instance where it uses a friend flag in making that push, making sure it's trying to follow the intents, and then 2, in making sure, like, right, because you mentioned about assigning for you, what's the integration you'll have seen with like OpenTGP, GNU PG, and Page or Rage to be able to, or even PATs, to be able to have that flow, but also have that clear delineation of, okay, this is me, this is what I'm fine with, either like Copilot or whatever AI.
Yeah.
And this is like, no, 100% me, no AI, like.
Then around authentication, how did it actually do the push? Did it leverage like the friend for like the co-authors or similar on it? Oh. Oh, yeah, so sorry, -F for force push, yes, or either way. So there's a couple things there. So the authentication against the GitHub MCP in particular is authenticating as you. So it's as far as GitHub is concerned, this is you doing the action. Even if the agent did it, you were the one who put it there. So it, as far as like the API and the auth and everything is concerned, you did it, even though the agent may have iterated all the way through in doing it. As far as like PGP and signing and various things of that nature, it will depend on how the interaction goes. There was a couple where it's running effectively terminal commands. So as long as you've set that up, all it's doing is automating a terminal invocation. So if that's already configured with your signing key or similar of however you want, that'll push all the way through. But there's not really a delineation, at least at present, of this was AI done versus this was human done. It's been the AI may do the work, and then the human's then responsible for it, right? So it's still, it's putting your neck on the line, which is both good and bad, right? Like there's kind of this blurry idea between how much of the code I've written, because even in a normal pull request, there's probably some percentage that I've done and some percentage that the AI has done. Some of my pull requests, Copilot has been absolute trash, and I gave up on it and said, you're done, real engineer time, and we're going to go through and actually get this done. And sometimes, especially if it's boilerplate automation stuff, it goes really quick. And it may do 95% of the work for me. There's only been a handful, I think I'd say it did completely without me needing to touch anything. But there's a lot of times, and I mentioned this to a the other day, set its suggestions because it's less typing for me to fix what it scratch. So sometimes it doesn't even need to be right. It just needs to save me effort, and I'll probably hit the yes, right? And then there's times, like especially while it's making those edits, yeah, you really shouldn't be touching this file. Hands off, right? Like that one wasn't yours to touch. It really likes to update the readmes. It's really good at that. And when it adds a new feature, it will go, wait, you were documenting features in the README. I got you. And it'll fill it out for you, which is great. And sometimes it's like, stop it. We're not doing this on every DB migration. Like this is not, the hands off, undo change. Yeah.
I was going to ask how many models you should be like minimum running within, and then bouncing back and forth to within Copilot.
Yeah. So how many models or how many Copilot instances? Yeah. I find that realistically, I can't manage more than 2 because they work fast enough that usually, like beyond that, I'm the bottleneck, right? And so if you're running in a code space, you can spin 2 code spaces, go to town, have fun, right? Locally, I will have 2 IDEs open, and I'll do like a Git work tree, and I'll give each of them a work tree to play in, because trying to play in the same environment where the AI is working, I have found to be fraught with peril, because if I start touching a file, it's trying to read a file, it wants to modify it, we just start stepping on each other's toes. You can get away with it if you know that it's going to be playing in this area and I'm going to be playing over here, and these 2 things don't. I've done that a little bit where it's playing in the code and I'm editing some pipelines or whatever. Right? I can kind of get away with it in that case, but in a lot of situations, I put it off in its own work tree. It gets its. I've given it a task. It can go play. I'll check on it in a second. And then sometimes if it's a longer running one, I'll go to the side. But like even like those prompts where it wants that user interaction, oftentimes I find that beyond 2, I'm like, I can't realistically keep up. And then my brain has to context switch between what each of these ones are focused on. And so it's almost like one of those simul chess games where you have the master playing against a whole bunch of people. You have to try to keep track of where you are in all these places. And there becomes my brain power is a limiting factor at that point of I can't physically switch. Great questions, though. Yeah?
Do you know if there's a way for, like, when you're doing the inline stuff to clear its context? Because I know I've had to, like, start implementing something like, I should just have Copilot do this. So I'll erase it, put in a comment saying what I want to do, and then it'll just give me the code that I just typed straight back at me. Because it's like,
yeah.
oh, yeah, I saw you just solved that problem. Let me give it back to you. It's like, no, I want to know what your solution is.
Yeah, so the question is with the inline edit around being able to clear some of its context, because it will oftentimes repeat back what it's seen you do recently. The only kind of, so from the inline stuff, you can jump over to the side window to continue the conversation back and forth, and there you have some sort of a context windows. If it's stuff that you've typed and deleted, the only way I'm aware of is restarting the IDE, because it's not a clear way of dumping that kind of in-process level stuff that it's picked up. And if it's or it's finding examples from other parts of your repo, you're best scoping it down and please don't look at this or copy the pattern that was seen here. Like that's been one of the more effective ways I've done it, is if I've implemented something one way, say, I want you to do the same, something similar to that, but over here. For example, I was building out a repo to do self-hosted agents, and I had a Docker file for GitHub Actions agents, and I was like, I want a DevOps one. Do it just like the GitHub one, but I want an Azure DevOps folder, and a job of getting pretty darn close the first try, because it saw the pattern and went, pattern. I do patterns really, really well. Like that is its bread and butter. So if there's something you can point it to say, do it like this, it oftentimes will follow that thing. You'll see people reference like 0 shot, 1 shot, and Clayton will tell me the third one when I forget it. But that 1 shot idea of giving it that sample of, here's an example of what I want, even in your prompts, if you say, do this, like I want to generate a bunch of that JSON data, here's an example, like even because in the one that we did, there was already some in there. But if you give it an example of here's what one might look like, it's really good at extrapolating from that because it's just pattern repetition. So if you can give it that starting pattern to work from, it'll go crazy. Right? Great question. Yeah.
Found that there's any noticeable difference when you're getting instruction to use YAML versus Markdown versus JSON?
Any difference between YAML, Markdown, or JSON? Not really. The only hedge that I will say is if that's the output format. Like I've used it to try to write documentation for like GitHub pages or similar. That's usually like Markdown or MDX or similar where you embed stuff. I found that it really struggled with the idea of MDX files with like TypeScript and embedded React components. And I believe the issue is it doesn't go out well under pulling in third-party things in a lot of different interesting ways. Like it's really good when it's showing it that. But if it's, in this case, DocuSource MDX files with TypeScript and React components, it's like all of those things are there, but it would have needed to pull documentation from a bunch of different sources, put those together, filled those out, and the basic LLM just didn't do that well. Maybe with some right servers or similar, I could have gotten better results. I ended up scrapping it and going, here's an example, do this. And that got me without trying to bring in all those sources. There are, I've got a colleague who has, there's an MCP server that you can feed it docs, and it will basically build up a RAG database of being able to run it, and he's gotten much better results of being able to query things out that way, because now it's no longer reliant on what can it pull from the internet. It's being told, here's your sources, here's the most up-to-date source of truth, use that. And so it kind of cuts down on where it may have gotten bad data from. Because if it goes out online, like it's no different than querying Stack Overflow yourself, right? There's a lot of crap on Stack Overflow that you should not copy into your repository. But it doesn't know the difference between good and bad. And so it just blindly goes, well, this thing's highly upvoted. I guess it's good. It's like, that's not a good metric. That just means people at some point in time click the button. So, great question. I've got one last thing I want to show really quick, and then I will jump for more questions here real quick, because we are bumping up on time. That's the lab that we just did. So the last thing. So there are GitHub Copilots in a lot of different areas. VS Code, Visual Studio. We saw multiple instances inside of the web browser interface. You can bring in Copilot inside of the CLI with the GitHub CLI. If you are running Windows, there is actually a Copilot window inside of Windows Terminal to bring it in. Copilot just launched GitHub Spaces for doing effectively RAG document intelligence search yesterday. There are tons of options to be able to go through and do. The GitHub CLI, I will also mention, does allow you to remotely connect to a code space from your local machine. So if you want to run VS Code locally connected to a code space, the GitHub CLI allows you to do that. So just wanted to mention that because that ends up getting you all the way there. And then if anybody wants any additional learnings, there are quite a few of these out here. Microsoft is playing a massive game of chase the tail, trying to keep this stuff up to date as things launch. All of this learning is usually within like a month or so-ish. So like it stays somewhat up to date because this is their focus of where everything is going. So if you want additional learning or training on all of those, plenty of good links there on the various learning modules. Just know that sometimes they lag behind a few weeks, and so check their blogs for latest up to date. That's where I found like the GitHub blog has all of the latest stuff, and you'll just see posts of new stuff coming out almost daily. So with that, I want to thank everyone for coming in here. I believe we are just about at time. Oh, I've got like 90 seconds. So Dan has been fielding questions, I think, online, but if there are questions in the room or online, happy to take them. I will be sticking around to chat with people. And with that, thank you all for coming. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.